Very good morning to all of you. Okay, so I think people online would have settled in. It's actually also raining in Delhi, so got slightly delayed. Now, I'll take a couple of minutes just to explain what are we doing here. This happens to be the first session for the new batch, and we are going to cover fresh topics here. So even if you don't have any idea of what current affairs are happening, you'll find it easy to go along. Now, people, if you're able to watch it online, just drop a comment. So, like some of you know, we have a PSIR 300 batch, which not only includes static topics per classes, you have continuous current affairs classes. Those who have joined this, right, recently or any time back, from now till December, you will have approximately 8 new classes. 8 recorded classes will also be there in your portal, which I have taken for the 2026 mains students. Okay? And we'll also be putting having a very close tab on 30th of August. What is going to happen on that? The paper, right? And we'll see how many questions, etc. were there, and we'll have a look at. Talking of that, in a moment, I'll also come to GS2 paper of this year, and what is the relevance of current affairs when you look into polity IR, okay? And of course, PSIR, right? So that is one. Now, those of you who are already there, who have recently joined, you will also have your private Telegram channel. In case somebody is watching this online, has joined recently, please look into it. You will find the link of the classes, the links I share for the topics, etc. will be posted here. So anybody who does not know, is not aware, can join this, right? Lastly, is a basic thing, right? You can, anybody new just got to know about this. There is already an orientation lecture I've taken 2 days back of what all is there in the program, so you can make yourself aware. Okay, fine. Okay. Now, today's class is titled, we already know, current affairs. I'll take up around 3 topics, but the way we do topics is also going to give you insights into the traditional static areas. The events will change, okay, but what is more important for us is to understand how to know the events, how to connect it to theory, and then how to write an answer. In fact, in this class itself, I will be giving you a couple of questions, the topics which I have done with you, okay, and brief spurt of writing also we will do in the class itself, okay, not the entire answer because this is the class number 1, but let's say I give you a question, I will only ask you to just write its introduction. And slowly, steadily, when your confidence increases, many people have this doubt that how to write an answer, right, specifically related to current affairs, okay. In fact, the very first topic I'll start with would be the Mecca Pact, okay, the Mecca Joint Defense Agreement. Many of you are aware, but it is important to know how to connect that topic to traditional static areas of 2A, okay. Although the topic is Mecca Joint Defense Agreement, it is related to again the decline of US-led, American-led order. It is also a decline of liberal institutionalism. It is also a decline on the promises of UN Security Council, that the regions or the regional countries, they choose to go into minilaterals. Why? The 3 countries have come together. It has become a minilateral, right? So I'll be talking about that. Now, before I do so, I think many of you would have seen the paper. ये देखा किसी ने? How many of you have seen the GS2 paper? सही से बताना, honestly. Those who have not seen it, कोई बात नहीं, you will see it. How many of have you seen yesterday's the Hindu newspaper? Why am I asking this? But which question? IPM. Pura full form. Almost correct. Okay, I'll tell you. Fine. See, if I look at these questions, okay, and I will tell you, for example, there are some static questions, no doubt, but the questions are very much current oriented. In fact, I will tell you, as a student of PSIR, if you've seen the essay paper, if you've seen GS1, GS2, you should feel happy, right? For example, I'll start with the very first. Some of you, I think, already know. Essay topic. One essay topic directly related to IR. Which was that? When two elephants fight. It is the grass. Whenever I start the US-China trade war, I start with this quote. And this I'm doing for the last 2 years, by the way. Okay, but this year finally the question has come. And again, see, one dimension is US-China trade war. This tells you when big powers fight, others have to pay consequences. When USA attacks Iran, when the whole Strait of Hormuz gets weaponized, we will see terms like weaponization of sea lines of communication. Who has to pay the price? The global south, the developing countries, the least developed countries. Then this is that grass. And who are the elephants? It can be India, China. Sorry, it can be US, China. And who all other can be elephants? It was US and USSR during Cold War. They were the elephants, they were fighting. Right? We almost saw a Cuban Missile Crisis. Now this is one. When two elephants fight, again think of the war between liberalism and socialism, communism. So ideologies can also be elephants. Right? So when two elephants, it is the grass. Grass means what? All the other people, spectators, who don't have enough power. This was one question. Okay. Second, if you look at GS1, okay, how many of you have seen GS1 paper? Of course, very dominant in geography. But here, one of the questions was related to the Gandhian strategy and how Gandhi enabled national movement to be a mass movement. And I will say this is one of the easiest questions in paper 1B that we do in PSIR, political science. That how Gandhian movement actually helped become mass movements, right? Again, if you've done this, you will enjoy. Another question was related to planned economy. Now somebody can say, I may have done this in post-independence, but again I'll tell you, when you do paper 1B, there is a specific topic, planning and economic development. One of the easiest questions, even if you've done your paper 1B. Okay, well, this was there. Now, one question was that the trade, global trade, is shifting from Atlantic to Indo-Pacific. Direct IR ka question. Of course, geography and IR also overlap, right? Now, Indo-Pacific, see, so you will see Indo-Pacific coming 2 times. One in GS1 and also in GS2. This was also there, right? In addition to this, there was a question on tundra. Sir, this is a hardcore geography question. How do I link it to PSIR, etc.? When you read about NSR, the Northern Sea Route, right now the Arctic is warming. We know this in environment also. But if Arctic is warming, can I not say that this also is important from a geopolitical perspective? Can also be something that I am aware of, right or no? So if I look at GS1, and of course I'm neglecting the questions on globalization and youth, that is more society oriented questions, right? Not very difficult. But if you have done your paper 1B also well, you always have an edge. Not saying that you do not do this. See, of course, Gandhian movement anyways, modern history mein you know. But sometimes what happens, during prelims and mains, you have very limited time. Let's be very practical. बहुत बार होगा कि you don't have enough time for history. But if you have done your portions of paper 1B well, you will always have the confidence in the exam hall. Okay, any questions on caste? Again, a question came on caste. And students with PSIR will have one of the best analysis on caste. And the kind of question they ask you, whether caste has lost its relevance in the 21st century, in the modern society. And you have to argue both ways. It seems like it, it does not seem like it. Okay, this was for GS1. I'll also quickly just discuss GS2. Only the questions, right? Say some of them have current affairs weightage. Now, right to privacy, not once, not twice, 3 times now they have asked you in mains. Okay. Now, first homework, please write. You will read about the right to privacy judgment, you know, case Puttaswamy case. But for PSIR, I'll tell you, in the case Puttaswamy case, when the judgment was being given, Supreme Court made a mention of 2 thinkers from WPT. Any idea? Mill is correct, and one is Aristotle. But you will now find what did the court said in this. So my homework to you is, you have to find in the case Puttaswamy judgment and see how many of you know there are 2 judgments of case Puttaswamy. Dekho, one is 2017. This is related to Article 21, right? The case Puttaswamy 2 judgment is 2018. This is related to Aadhaar. I am referring to the first one. That right to privacy is a fundamental right under Article 21, the basic Puttaswamy judgment. In this judgment, court had mentioned Aristotle, this I am telling you, and even Mill. But I want to know just a basic one line, what was said. When you do this many times in paper 1B, you will get a question. Expanding nature of fundamental rights. This you can now link. Court has already linked it. Okay. Now, the question that was asked was right to privacy, and this was related to the recent Transgenders Act of 2026. Now, this is related to current affairs. Okay. In our Samadhan classes, etc., we'd also covered this. But my point is, the right to privacy sometimes you prepare standalone. 2 years back, they had linked right to privacy with DNA testing. Right to privacy, you know. Now, ab dekho, fight. When the question was on DNA testing, the question is, you have a child, a newborn. Newborn's right is to know who is the parent, and let's say somebody's right to have their privacy. This is a fight. But the court ruled that newborn's right is important, but it should not infringe or bring disreputation to somebody else, because parentage issues can be very complicated. Okay? This year they've linked it to Transgenders Act, which means a classic case of a static topic and linking it to whatever is happening. Maybe in the Transgenders Act, when the data etc. is supposed to be given, in this the linkage was there. One of the first questions. Okay? Second question that many of you would have done with me 2 months back, on I think even 1 week back. Question aaya, what is judicial legislation? And in the question they have mentioned passive euthanasia and living will. Both of these 2 terms were in news. Why? Which case? The most recent case of 2026. In fact, we had done 3 cases. 2 prominent cases are what? Common Cause versus Union of India, and one is Aruna Schomburg case. In these cases, there is living will. In fact, we had even done in far more detail the Harish Kumar case, far more detail. I've even told you terms like CANH. ये क्या होता है बताओ? What is CANH? Clinically assisted nutrition, right? So this was initially given and then it was later on withdrawn because then it was found it was not helping. अब ये question आप तब answer, you will be able to answer it if you are aware of current affairs. As simple as that. Okay, 1. Now, other questions which I'll tell you. There is a question on federalism. This question, anybody who has done their optional will know it. Even the GS people will know it. And they've asked you a question on asymmetric federalism. What is asymmetric federalism? नहीं है, right? Give me any example for that. Sixth schedule, good. Fifth schedule, Article 371, A, B, C, D, E. Some states are treated differently from the others. Okay, and this is a 15 marker they had asked you. Federalism is one of the most basic topics that you will read in PSIR also and polity. We should know this in and out. Not a difficult question, easily doable. Directly a question had come on speaker. Okay, basic reading है हमारी 10 marker में पूछा है. We'll be able to write that. If you look at the polity questions, there is no question. Of course, in governance, every time they will twist, right? They will try to bring in education by question and there's a question on malnutrition. Okay. My point is, if we have a good reading of these questions, we'll be sorted. Now come to the interesting section you are waiting for is, how many questions have come in IR? 4. Okay. Now, the very first question is this. First question is a 10 marker, right? Second question, now I'll tell you what all had come from the classes also. This part directly and in depth has been covered in the classes. IPMDA stands for Indo-Pacific Marine Domain Awareness. Okay. Now, why I asked you that did you read yesterday's Hindu is that there is a full-fledged editorial on this. After my class ends, I will also share the link for this. Just read it. The question, however, said, by the way, this question is not, it is not that you will not be able to do it. Question says, IPMDA is somewhere in between SAGAR. SAGAR we know, security and growth for all, and Quad. What is Quad? It is a grouping between 4 countries, India, Australia, US. See? Now, in our classes, I have also mentioned, Quad की relevance decline हो रही है. Last year, there was no Quad leader summit. This year, India insisted, and we only had a foreign minister. This also we have done, foreign ministers meet. So Quad sometimes is looked at, if you remember, a military bloc. We've seen Sergey Lavrov. What does he say? Quad is Asian NATO and Quad is anti-China. Right? This is a negative perception of the bloc. Second, USA is not putting much focus on it. अब इंडिया का विजन क्या है? सागर, security and growth for all, and Quad becomes to be in some sense slightly militarized, right? तो ये पूछा है इसमें, ये इसके बीच में है. IPMDA Marine Domain Awareness. Now for this question, you had to just put in your basic idea, which means this is better than Quad because it does not go into a kind of a militarized understanding. Second, if you have marine domain awareness, you can understand the threats emanating from the sea, right? You will know piracy related issues, you will know terrorism, even you will know climate change related disasters. If you know this, can you have a better trade? हो सकता है trade? Now I will just show this to you. If I just mention IPMDA, अब देखो, this is 1 day ago. Unimpeded trade needs IPMDA as the answer. ठीक है? Now, many of you know Indo-Pacific. You know the vision of Indo-Pacific: free, open, inclusive, prosperous, rules-based order. ये चाहिए हमें, right? How can this happen? When you have proper marine domain awareness. So you have to play along. Right? Of course, directly this was not done. In fact, I had not done this directly. But we have done Sagar, we have done Quad, and this was as a 10 marker. You will have enough points on the spot to write on. This is what most students would have done. वो तो अभी now we are doing a post facto analysis, and now I can say, but who will read this 1 day before the exam? Okay, this is only for post facto part. यहाँ पे क्या है? It is for maritime cooperation. So specifically as a unit, not done, but overall, although we have done IPOI in the class, Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative, this is India-led initiative. They did not ask you. इन्होंने ये पूछा आपसे, ठीक है? Write this also as a homework. This link I will also share in your groups. This again I am telling you, whenever we are preparing PSIR, हम 250 नंबर GS2 के साथ में सोच के चलते हैं. So you are thinking of 500 plus 250. Bare minimum I am saying, bare minimum. And your GS cup preparation should be aligned in a manner that even if you sometimes devote less time to GS polity and IR, you should be in a position to write very good answers, right? Now, this and this done. So this is one question. Ab baki sare question to their depth, detail, everything that was asked has been done. Bricks for the people who have already done the previous current affairs classes. They would know why did we do bricks. बस मुझे एक reason बताओ. Why did we do bricks in the class? Good. चलो de-dollarization उससे ज्यादा important reason की वजह से करा है bricks. 2026 BRICS chair is India, right? Yes, PM Modi said humanity first. And here they have mentioned alternative to West order, everything we have done. So BRICS was the question, was expected. Why? Because of the current affairs. In 2026, what is the current affair? India was the chair, will be the chair of BRICS summit, right? That was an important aspect. Now, Indian diaspora, why is it not a difficult question? I'm telling you, is a topic mentioned in our syllabus. Okay, in the GS virtual classes which I also take, Indian diaspora, I always have 2 pages. Political contribution of diaspora, economic contribution, social contribution, all the examples, etc. वही पूछा है आपसे, cultural capital, knowledge linkage, this and that, right? In fact, I often use a line in my class, from Rajdoot to Rashtradoot. This is what Modi ji said. Rajdoot is the ambassador. Rashtradoot कौन हो गया? Diaspora, right? This is a 15 marker. If you prepared it well, you will be able to write. And BRI, किस को पता है? And by the way, since 2023 mains, I am saying BRI पे question आएगा. Finally, it has come. Why I was saying since 2023? BRI was launched in 2013. So 2023 was its 10-year anniversary. UPSC ने कब पूछा? 12/13 year anniversary पे. Okay. What is BRI? Belt Road Initiatives. But the students of PSIR will say, what is BRI? Chalo, abhi, for the students with the first class, I have not done this with you. We will do this later in more detail also. I say this is the Mahan Mackinder theory in action. BRI. For now, you can just write this line. We will expand on it. BRI is the geo-economics in place. Not geopolitics, geo-economics. This we have even done in detail. We have done string of pearls. We have done necklace of diamonds, right? And we have also done initiatives to counter BRI. I always tell 5 initiatives to counter BRI. Try karo, yaad karo. 5 initiatives or 4 initiatives to counter BRI. In fact, this in the recent foundation class, I was telling that India is developing a kahan pe? Again to counter string of pearls. Again linked to the topic of Belt and Road Initiative. And we also do, good example, countering BRI. Right now you can make running notes if you want, but all of this has been done. कैसे counter कर सकते हैं BRI को? One is, this is an initiative of G7, Partnership for Growth, Investment and Infrastructure. This is an initiative of G7. Another initiative to counter them is this IMEC. But remember, IMEC is a sub-initiative of PGII. What is IMEC? India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. ये क्यों इंपॉर्टेंट है? दिस वॉज लॉन्च ड्यूरिंग द प्रेसिडेंसी ऑफ इंडिया 2023 in New Delhi. So IMEC came. IMEC is also a way to counter Chinese BRI, Belt and Road Initiative. तीसरा, EU's initiative, Global Gateway, European Union. All these are infrastructure projects, but these are Western infrastructure projects. BRI है क्या? Land, which means connectivity projects, infrastructure projects on land and also on sea. When I say it is Mahan, what is Mahan? Alfred Mahan's line, those who rules oceans rule the world. So it has maritime component. What is Mackinder? The heartland theory, right? The rimland, basic dominance on the land part, right? Eurasia. So Mahan, Mackinder theory put in action is also BRI, Belt and Road Initiative, right? Global Gateway. Another important thing we have seen previously is AAGC, India and Japan, Asia, Africa Growth Corridor between India and Japan, also a way to counter Chinese BRI. So seemingly looking a simple infrastructure project can also have issues. है ना? It's a simple infrastructure project. Then why are countries concerned about it? BRI. Chalo. Your friend is saying in the concerns, and I'll take at least 4 or 5 responses here. First concern is it leads to debt trap. Correct. It can lead to debt trap. Then okay, good. It does not lead to capacity building, which means even if there's a project going on in Pakistan, जैसे कि CPEC. CPEC is a part of BRI, China Pakistan Economic Corridor. वहां पे employment किसका होगा? The local Chinese troops are there, not the local population of, let's say, Pakistan or Sri Lanka or Africa. This is the concern. It does not lead to local capacity building. और कुछ, you are missing the main points. Ritesh, try करो. कैप्चरिंग नहीं कर रहे हैं. Security threat, good, but how? Correct है, security threat is correct. Next point, शोभन, try करो. आप सोचो रहे हो, सिंपल क्वेश्चन है. The question in UPSC had said BRI has become a theater of conflict. Why? Why are the Western countries countering BRI? बनाने दो रोड उनको, क्या दिक्कत है? Good point, very good. You also said the same point, right? So one point is it does not respect. I've already given you the hint. It does not respect sovereignty of its member nations. Absolutely correct. Iska correct example is this. CPEC passes through India's right region, Gilgit-Baltistan. One issue. Fourth issue, what you had mentioned, is security, but kaise? How? So, okay, one thing can be encirclement, strategic encirclement, but इसको हम बोलते क्या हैं? We have dual use infrastructure projects. Dual use means what? In the day it is used by civilians, in the night can be used by military spying. That is the security aspect. In general, see, for example, if in Africa there is a project, let's say China is using this region. China has built a base in Djibouti, in Horn of Africa. Okay? Now this can be used for spying, this can be used for, let's say, military operations also. This is a potential threat. So security implications of other countries can be impacted. That is the region, which means the Western Bloc looks this as a security threat. ये Western Bloc का perception है, that they see this as a threat. Yes, absolutely. So for example, if India is there, right? If I look at India and just think of BRI in your mind, okay? This is Horn of Africa, यहाँ पे, ठीक है? In Djibouti, they have a base, can be used for this Arabian Sea, Indian Ocean. यहाँ पे there is Gwadar in Pakistan. Gwadar port is connected to, they have built a base here. Sri Lanka mein they have Hambantota. In Myanmar, there is China-Myanmar Economic Corridor. This is which port? Kok Pyu, Kwakpu port. Now, the issue is, what is the issue? These projects close to India's vicinity, this is also what is led to as the encirclement, string of pearls. And the apprehension is that, what is the apprehension? We are not saying they're directly militarizing it. Apprehension is they can always bring in some military to safeguard the project, and that can create a security dilemma. जो ये term है ना, security, I should better write this as security dilemma. If one nation does missile testing, their neighbors will be put in a security dilemma. Now they will go for an arms race. This is a challenge again with respect to BRI, Belt and Road Initiative. Fine. And again, this was a 15 marker, and all these dimensions in detail, okay, either in the GS classes or even in the optional classes have been done. So this should have not been difficult. Only difficulty would have been, and this is not that only for us, major classes you will not see this term done in detail. But this is again where your awareness is there, because you already know Quad, you already know Sagar. Right, so you have to talk about marine domain awareness, Indo-Pacific, bring about vision. Now, I have already told you, ASEAN centrality is a core feature of Indo-Pacific. वो सब लिखेंगे यहाँ पे in this question. हाँ, बिल्कुल होता है ना. Yes, the sovereignty. And what is that? For example, if, and this is how they become a client state, their own sovereignty goes down. और ये तो China is doing. But sometimes the same thing is done by MNCs. MNCs in Africa, they become so powerful, right? In our previous classes, I've also given you an example of a family from UP, the Gupta family. The Gupta family is a multi-billionaire family, and that family ultimately controlled every decision of South Africa. अब आप सोचो, ठीक है? And this is again a good case study. When we do paper 2A, I'll again explain this. Not sure whether this was most probably शायद ये थी. अब देखो term, you know the term state capture? The Gupta family, forget their names, they went to Africa, they were very powerful, okay? To the extent, massive corruption. You have heard this name? Jacob Zuma, the previous South African president, and he actually led plea to Dubai. The allegations was a private company becoming so powerful, leading to, ये term याद रखो, state capture. In your paper 2A, there is a topic MNCs, companies. Companies can do this also. Same can also happen with BRI, state capture. Major debt of Pakistan, major debt of Sri Lanka is Chinese debt. Right? And again, BRI is not a shocker at all. Now, one takeaway that I have, last year, how many of you have seen 2025 IR paper GS? You should be knowing the papers in and out. Basic expectation from my side. Last year के questions tough आए थे. I'm telling you, the language and the nature was very complicated. This year, these three questions, if you have prepared it well, two 15 markers, one 10 marker, one is slightly indirect. Language is not very complicated. बारीक the question आप कहोगे नहीं sir, diasporum it's such a long question, almost 3 lines. But core essence, you can easily be able to write it. If I compare it from 2025, the language also for IR, so I will say 2026, of course, more doable if you have followed. And the language of questions, again similar, right? I will say comprehensible. But because sometimes the IR questions are complicated, even for people with PSIR optional. Okay? Now, I started today's current affairs class giving you this snapshot. Okay? Today, of course, when the class ends, you should also go and see GS3 paper, GS4 paper. We will again be meeting to discuss the optional paper, okay, which again will be offline discussion. An optional paper, if you're not aware how I take the discussion, I take it in phases. Almost a week will go for optional paper discussion. One will be discussion. Discussion is what you are listening to me. You feel great, okay, nice, I know. Second part is the part where I will ask you to write every question, and we will write every question of the optional. Okay? Regardless of the fact whether you know that content or not, that is my job. Because if you're starting right now PSR, we would have just done a couple of topics of 1A, but that does not mean we cannot do the paper still. I will be telling you some things, you will be writing, we will be making a bit active or optional. If you don't do it now, you will say, nahi sir, when I clear the prelims, I'll do that. Wo time kabhi nahi aata. Okay? And whenever you get time, GS, optional or essay, whenever. I have a habit of giving a lot of essays. Sometimes the essay comes, okay? But that is just coincidence, as simple as that. The more involved you are in the process, the better your phrasing and better your understanding will be, okay? Always keep a keen tab and always audit your notes again. Were my notes good enough to tackle the depth of the question that was needed? If not, it has to be updated. If not, ask your teacher, okay? In this case, for example, optional, you will directly approach. Okay, this is a continuous process that must happen, okay? Till here, people able to follow, right? Again, the point I wanted to make today is to make sure for us, we are looking at this. Even when I'm doing PSI current affairs with you, acha, I forgot to take up those questions. Even revision of electoral rolls question, election commission was asked. We've done that in detail also in PSI current affairs classes. Other questions also, fine. We are looking at a combined 10-50 marks, right? Of course, yahan pe you should have done your governance and social justice also, because this we do not cover. We are more talking of polity and IR. You will get a lot of overlap, and this is how the overlap is also there. Okay? Keep this in mind. Fine. Now, let's start with actual topics of today's class. Okay? Now, the format of the class, because many of you are new, you're following the class for the first time. The current affairs classes we will be making simple notes on A4 sheets. Okay? In between, I will also be using PPT just to summarize things. Okay? Now, for every topic, first I will be explaining that topic to you in the most easiest terms. Okay? For that part, you can focus on the board. Whatever mind maps I draw, you can also draw with me, or maybe when I give you a break, then you can draw that. Okay? For every topic, the core essence, the good lines, the factual details analysis, I make you write down, so that you don't feel ki, do I need to write every word that you are saying? Every topic, first I will be explaining it to you. Okay? The core write-up that should be there, because this is optional. Optional means you should have some write-up and some takeaway with you, so that is something that you will revise on. Now, every topic that we do is going to be linked to some theory, or there will be a basis why I have taken that topic in the class. Second thing, the topics that we will be taking in current affairs class, it is not that something happened 2 days before or 1 week before, then I am going to teach. I will only be teaching when I have relevant analysis on that topic, and that is only when that also solves the purpose. Fine? So that is there. Now, in case you have a backlog again, so what you will do, first your first focus should be complete the ongoing classes. अच्छा, how many of you here have access to a portal? किस किस के पास है? ठीक है, किस किसने पुरानी क्लासेस करी हुई हैं थोड़ी बहुत? You've done one. अच्छा ठीक है, आपने नहीं करंट अफेयर्स की कितनी करी है क्लास? 2. अच्छा, यू हैव डन ऑल, आई नो, आप लोगों ने सारी लाइव करी है क्लास में, ठीक है, कोई बात नहीं. Today your first focus, anybody is watching this, to be completing this class. Okay, whenever you have time in your schedule, then you can go back to the recordings. Now your question may be, sir, why to do so much? Let's only do this, let's make our life easy. Uska answer I'll tell you, and this answer will be answered on 30th also. When you look at PSIR paper, if you're preparing for 2027, you should know at least 2 years of current affairs. So the recordings that are there, and just to tell you, the recordings were for mains 2026 students. That was done live, now for you recorded format. In total 8 classes. Okay. Again, my expectation is there will be a lot of questions in 30th paper that will come. Okay. Ab isme, whenever you find time, but your priority should be the fresh lectures. Okay. Make a proper notebook. And these two combined will give you a huge solid base. Some of you who have come here and joined may have done their foundation some years back. वो सारा का सारा backlog will be covered here, all of that. And when I say we do current affairs, the current affairs are heavy in 1B also. The current affairs are actually the most heavy in 2A, and this is the most neglected section, I'm telling you. When I teach you the Mecca Defense Agreement, आप सोचोगे sir this is 2B, but I'll tell you it's a topic of 2A. Linked to 2B, no doubt. I can bring in the Indian perspective, but actually this is linked to the decline of US-led order, the issues with UN, which I'll tell you, right? And goes without saying 2B as well. Okay? Okay. So that is there. अच्छा ठीक है, good point. This question that apart from the classes, I just want to ask you, those of you who are in the previous group, I had shared 3 articles some time back. जैसे मैंने बोला, everybody is laughing. I know why. Why are you laughing? How many of you had read those 3 editorials? One editorial was Pratap Bhanu Mehta on nationalism. One was Yogendra Yadav on caste. The most recent article. Third article कौन सा था? That I told you. Second article was Yogendra Yadav on caste. तीसरा article कौन सा शेयर किया था मैंने? On? Check करो. Just you check and tell me. ठीक है आगे. No, I'm just asking. I'm not asking whether you comprehend it or not. What was the third article, the theme or the scholar? S.Y. Qureshi on election commission. ठीक है, अब देखो 2 चीजें हैं. We can do 2 things here. First is, normally I would recommend you read newspaper. अब सवाल होगा सर कौन सा? Some of you will say, should I follow ORF? Something else? I am saying pick any, कोई भी. Now, you have a very busy life, very busy schedule. It may happen you are not able to follow newspaper on daily basis, very practically speaking. What you should do, take any one single day of the week, कोई भी एक दिन. You have to just skim through the editorials of the newspaper you are interested in. देखो, you have to be very clear in your mind, why are we doing something? If I'm reading editorials, okay, let's say one is, it will help me in GS papers, it will help me in optional, it can also help me in RC, vocab, it can also help me in interview. Many reasons are there, right? But be very practical about it, very practical. Okay, there are many editorials. Let's say on the Strait of Hormuz, there will be 10 types of editorials. If you've done one good tutorial, others just skip. You know the main essence. This, if you are able to do, excellent. The classes will to a large extent bridge this gap. But if you ask, should the class be a substitute for this? Answer is no. Right? Because you remember normative approach, empirical approach. What ought to be, what is. What is, I also know. But I will tell you what ought to be. क्या करना चाहिए. ठीक है, one thing. Second, this is, देखने में आपको बहुत अच्छी लगेगी. Every day hundreds of articles are mentioned here. You will not be able to keep a track of this. ठीक है. Now, to make your lives easier, what I will also do, every week I'll also be posting my links, some things which I felt were good in your respective channels. Okay. Now here one issue can be, a very genuine issue can be, a issue of मेरे साइड तो आर्टिकल खुल रहा है, but when you open it, click to subscribe and this and that. This can be a genuine issue. Okay. Now second thing, now there are some intelligent people here who know how to bypass the paywall. Okay, that I'm not going to talk about on YouTube right now. Okay. Second thing which I can also do is, there are some short good podcasts. Okay. अब देखो, when you're doing this, you will see, sir, I think we are overdoing current affairs. My point is, everything depends on your interest. Okay. If you are solid with this part, right, tough type of questions, because see, you are talking of, and when you see the difference that comes in marks, somebody scoring 240 versus somebody scoring 280, 290, 300. When you look at it, then you see how somebody creates a 50 mark difference. Everything depends on your process. और ऐसा नहीं कि this you have to do indefinitely. When you start for prelims, stop this exercise. Do it for the 4 months. Post prelims also, whatever backlog is there, post prelims we will meet again. These people, many people already know. Post prelims के जितने भी main articles हैं, वो हम फिर से नहीं cover कर लेंगे. ठीक है? If you are able to spare time, and please don't go for perfection, you will not be able to read every day. This I know, which is why reading editorial in a week is better strategy. Take out 2 hours in any one day of the week. Maybe do it in 1 hour, 1 hour. Right? Go through it. And main thing is, if you're reading then Indian Express, don't think that I missed something on Hindu. The issue would have been covered. Analysis may be done. Maybe Shashi Tharoor writes, or maybe Nirupama Rao writes, C. Rajamohan writes. The person analysis may change. That is not, main thing is you need to know the issue. I hope that part is clear. Okay? So this ultimately, the more effort you put in, the better it is. But I'm saying to a large extent, the classes will bridge. But if you really want a good vocabulary expression, ye karna hai. Another question I get is this. Sir, what to do? I've read article. After 1 week, I don't remember the article. And after 1 week, I don't remember what I read. And I also forgot everything I forgot. Uske liye, what you should do, if you want date wise, just write the title. Sometimes the author will make a very flowery title, some random title. From the title, you cannot guess this title is related to which topic. Let's say the issue is West Asia. Okay. And let's say the title of the editorial is, okay, the crisis on roads. Some random title. अब इससे तो आप guess ही नहीं कर पाओगे कौन सी चीज है. So when you write, your title should be linked to a topic you know. Now let's say if it was C. Raja Mohan. Ideally, I would want to summarize it in your own words, but this also is a tedious task. Best thing what you can do is just keep a repository of keywords. Okay. जैसे for example, we use terms like Thucydides trap. आपको अच्छा कीवर्ड दिखा. Middle Kingdom complex. अच्छा कीवर्ड दिखा. Anything good, any good quote line that you are finding. Other than that, just read the editorial. That is more than sufficient. And every week or every 2 weeks, just flip your copy. Acha, I read something on West Asia. I read something on Indian diaspora. If something stands out, which compels you, this should be in my notes, do that. But whenever you are making notes, make sure notes खुद सोचो इतने छोटे होने चाहिए. आप revise करो. If your mindset is like na आंधे, that bring everything on, your notes will become so bulky, you will dread your notes. which means you should be a very strict editor. If any word from the newspaper is going to your notes, you should be convinced ये होना चाहिए था मेरे notes में. And go with a minimalist mindset, I'm telling you. इतने छोटे notes psychologically उतना कम burden. Many people think the opposite. Sir, I want to make very comprehensive, very bulky notes. You will never be able to revise it. अभी classes के notes होंगे, crash course पे static topics notes will be there. You already have your own notes and virasats and your legacies, inherited properties. Yes or no? How much will you manage? बहुत practical होना पड़ता है. And sometimes ये editorial छोटे सॉरी हाँ अगर आप if you're not able to remember the context in which you have written a keyword, so then that means your note taking has to improve. For example, give me any example. I'll tell you how to write that. कुछ बताओ मुझे. हाँ इक्वालिटी है. हाँ समझ गया. देखो देखो what he's saying is, let's say I'm reading newspaper में everything is there. I have taken this line from the newspaper. I think you are saying I've added to my notes. Then I was fully conscious, right? After few months, yeah, after few days when I'm saying, तो ये लिखा क्यों है मैंने? Yes or no? Now you don't remember the context, which is why what you can do whenever you write something in English, Hindi, whatever language you know, in the bracket you add your meaning to it. For example, whenever I say when you revise, आप ऊपर लिखते रहो, this is where I will use it, and never trust your memory. जब आप नोट्स बनाओगे ना, आपको ये तो मुझे याद आएगा, एक हफ्ते बाद आपको याद आएगा. Your memory can never be trusted. And your notes should be in a manner that even in your worst state, you should be able to understand your notes. वो आपको समझ में आनी चाहिए. So what the problem that you're saying, जब आपको equality का issue, I think the equality, link it to paper 1A, link it to something of social justice, link it to reservation, wherever you can use it. फिर आपको पता रहेगा this is where I can use it. ठीक है. And again I am saying, right, have been there, done that. I'm telling you, right? So you will make these mistakes. Very, very, very bulky notes. And the moment you make bulky notes, you'll say, sir, 4 hours has gone. Now what will I do? So reading only the thing that you think is something so special, so important, write that. Other things generally are covered in the magazines or in the classes. That should not be your challenge. I hope that part is clear. And I know these are genuine issues that you face. ठीक है? ये है. Daily if you're reading, I will say, if I would have had, नहीं तो मुझे आप 2 मिनट दीजिएगा या फिर maybe after 1 hour or so, I will take up the newspaper of today. I'll also open it with you. Okay, I'll quickly show you how I train my eyes. मैं कैसे flip करता हूँ. अच्छा ये important है, ये important है, ये चीज है, इसमें मैं क्या पढ़ूंगा. ठीक है. In 1 hour, ठीक है, after I complete one topic, this I will do in the class itself. मेरे हिसाब से for going through at least 2 newspapers does not take me more than 30 minutes. But I know which article to see, which to skip. And many a times I just see the conclusion of the editorial to understand the essence. Sometimes the introduction to know what the author is talking about. Okay. But of course, your knowledge base and mine, there is a difference. For any topic, let's say IR में refugee पे, I already know major issues. मैं सिर्फ वो मेरे काम की चीज है. I'm looking for something that is something I don't know. That is what I will add. Okay. For you, it may be different. But if you start, whenever you start, आपका knowledge base बनता रहेगा. ठीक है. So and you have to be very brutally precise. कौन सा छोड़ना है, कौन सा पढ़ना है. This exercise will also, I am telling you, helpful and very helpful in paper 1B. Paper 1B में major students का issue क्या होगा? They simply write Lakshmikant in paper 1B and expect very good marks. If you do my 1B classes, when you will do, आपके notes पुराने notes और उसमें आपको जमीन आसमान का अंतर दिखेगा. Right? Because they are very precise, very much academic also in nature. What is needed for the exam? But वो चीज आपको यहाँ से भी मिल सकती है. Christopher Jeffrelot, John Reach, all these people keep on writing. Right? So this is the process, one by one. You have more problems, you also discuss that with me. Okay? So I think this is right now 11:48. Maybe in 1.5 hours, I'll also show today's paper. Okay? वो भी discuss कर लेंगे if that is an issue. ठीक है. That we can do. Don't worry. Fine. चलो. Any other doubt which people have? Because again, this is your first class. I will keep it Simple, you will be able to understand everything which we write. I read whole week's newspaper on Saturday, Sunday at one go. Per paper 1.1 point, अच्छा 1.5 hours per paper. तो वो तो ज़्यादा टाइम लगेगा फिर आपको. 40 minutes is good. ठीक. Again, ये जो टाइम है, everybody's time is relative. Okay. And sometimes it can happen in the initial times. You may take more time. Okay, no issues. बस एक सवाल पूछना है अपने आप से हमेशा. What is my takeaway? Right? In my classes also, I ask you a lot of questions to make your mind is active. Whenever we read, many times what happens, our mind is very lethargic. Right? पढ़ा अच्छे से, नोट्स अच्छे से बनाए, रिकॉल ही नहीं, कोई 1% का रिकॉल नहीं है. And if you are not able to recall, again audit your notes. Notes and you should be a two-way process. And पूरे हम जो सब कुछ कर रहे हैं, the crux of this, everything PSIR, every subject, crux simple सी एक चीज है. Are you able to reproduce your notes? As good and as bad it may sound. There are people I know very expert in IR. They will see all the podcasts in the world, but when it comes to writing, they will not be able to write even a basic answer. जो दिमाग में है वो कॉपी में नहीं है, and you are only judged on your copy. And there are some people who will not do enough of this because इसकी लिमिट ही नहीं है. I'm telling you, इसके बाद आएगा सर ये तो अच्छा है, but can you suggest me a good book on Afghanistan, good book on Pakistan, and this and that? There is no end to it. But remember, you have to write 150 words, 250 words max. So whenever you are reading something, the only litmus test, whenever you attend any class or classes, how much do I retain? How much effort I need? ये सबका अलग होता है. And एक बार आपके अंदर ये नैक आ गया, क्लास के बाद रिवाइज करना है. You have to revise every class. How much you are able to reproduce? Many times it will happen. You have done political theory. The moment you give test, हर चीज alien लग रही है. You're not able to remember many things. Why? You've not internalized it. Fine? ठीक है. Start with a fresh page. Start with a fresh page. अच्छा, Utsav, you are a beginner. What I hope your optional is PSIR. If that is the case, I'm dropping a contact. You can leave a message here after the class. Can speak, can be connected. Okay. Now, we're starting with the MECA Joint Defense Agreement. Now, first, I will give you an overview of this topic. Post that, I'll make a simple mind map. And that mind map is something that you will remember. And after that, we will write a proper write-up on this. Okay? And after write-up, the most exciting thing we will do, we will be writing an answer on this. Okay? And answer maybe, it will be a guided stage-wise process. Okay? Because my idea is at least at the end of the class, on this topic, you will have absolute clarity. Okay? So what is the name of the topic? MECA Joint Defense Agreement. Now, which region are we talking about? The region of Middle East. Fine. Now, if I look at 2025, Pakistan and Saudi, did they have a pact? What was that pact? And we will be organically building this topic. So 2025, Pakistan, Saudi had a mutual defense pact, right? Now, in 2026, what happened? We know the huge escalation that happened. US, Israel, Iran. Okay. And this escalation was not limited to these three countries. This escalation had a whole regional dimension, yes or no? Regional dimension to the extent that when Iran saw that it was being attacked, Iran attacked every other neighbor in its vicinity, right? Did Iran also attack Saudi? Some missiles were thrown, Oman, various regions. So this means the regional dimension was there. A conflict, now this conflict has been brewing for a very long time. Last year, in 2025, if we remember, USA had sent its B-2 bombers inside Iran and again attacking facilities like Natanz, right? Fordo, right? Isfahan. But the escalation moved to another unprecedented level, right? Ab, just hold your thoughts here for a moment. Few weeks back, when this happened, some weeks back, USA, of course, under the one and only, we saw the application of Monroe Doctrine. Monroe Doctrine is revival of Monroe Doctrine, but under Donald Trump. Where was this seen? Venezuela. And what had they done? Captured Maduro. Entering Venezuela, capturing Maduro. Is this violation of state sovereignty? Yes. अब देखो background में you know what is happening. Violation of state sovereignty. International principle. Now, some experts believe that USA wanted to do similar thing in Iran. Now, USA sometimes is also criticized for doing a regime change, right? Now, when USA attacks Iran and takes out its head of state, the main leader, the whole region will not descend into chaos. Now, USA was expecting, or perhaps their calculation would have been, this will be a very small conflict. But just like Vietnam War, just like Afghanistan, and just like Russia-Ukraine issue, no conflict is a small conflict. And in this situation, again we say, when two elephants fight, it is the grass that gets trampled. Everybody was impacted by this, right? Now, what happened? Iran started to also assert itself, attack, okay? And when I say attack, of course, Iran will say we are doing in our self-defense, right? Now, Iran was, let's say, very active in its regional neighborhood. So one thing Iran had done, so I think I should write it. So I'm saying post-attack on Iran, what we saw regional escalation, missiles going here and there, right? We also saw weaponization of supply chains, and more specifically, I should say, sea lines, right? Sea lines, when I see weaponization, I'm talking of which strait? Strait of Hormuz. Strait of Hormuz is getting weaponized. Now, how many of you are aware that almost a couple of months back there was a ceasefire agreement and it was said things will be brought to normal. ऐसा हुई बात हुई थी. What happened to that? The entire time in that ceasefire it was said we will be taking 2 months to resolve the deal. 2 months have passed away, nothing has happened. Right? In that deal also, which country was important in brokering that deal? Pakistan. Right? But the issue is even no normalcy has been brought in that deal. This is the challenge. Now, when I look at the attack on Iran, okay, when I look at attack on Iran, we are also aware of the proxies, right? And with proxies, I remember 3H. What is 3H? Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis. 3H hai. Where are they operating? चलो इसको भी लिख लेते हैं. See, the first one, for example, is Hamas. Today only I will tell you what is the recent update on Hamas. There is a 15-point plan that is being there, and Hamas has agreed to that. But Israel is saying we don't believe in your plan and your human rights approach. I will explain to you what has happened. Where is Hamas active? Second H is, where are they active? Houthis. Yemen is below Saudi Arabia, right? They are active in Yemen. And third one is Hezbollah. Where is Hezbollah active? Lebanon. This also we know. Hezbollah is active in Lebanon. Now there is, if you are attacking Iran, many people said, अगर आप ईरान से ceasefire करोगे, Iran will stop. Its proxies won't stop. This is also new dimension of warfare. Proxy warfare. Right? That is why you also need to know. A simple topic of mega joint will have so many interconnections that we will see. So there was a regional escalation. There is a weaponization of Hormuz. Talking of Hormuz, how much is India's dependence of outside energy? Roughly 80 to 90% comes from outside. And India ka LNG imports, Qatar, all these areas, they are getting impacted. Now, in this war, something, of course, regional war, but एक और चीज है, बहुत peculiar dimension is, the energy fields have been attacked. This also happened. इससे पहले तक, whenever wars were there, you did not focus on energy fields. So energy fields were attacked. In fact, Iran also said if there is any one single more attack on our energy field, we will now escalate. Okay? Now, this is also there. Okay. So you need to know what is happening in the context, right? Now, why Iran was attacked and all of that is also a separate topic we will do in more detail. But the crux of it was Iran going for nuclear enrichment. Okay, in my future classes again I'll explain it to you. If you have a nuclear weapon, आप पे attack नहीं होगा. But if you are in the process of making a weapon, you will be attacked from all sides. That is also something, a big paradox related to nuclear weapons. If you have nuclear weapons, everybody will do a salam. Okay, good. Nobody attacks North Korea. Yes or no? And in North Korea, we know there is a madman theory. What is the madman theory? Kim Jong-un, the perception of him, he can do anything. And there is a US president who is very actively trying to become that madman. Okay? Okay. Monroe, so we have talked about Monroe Doctrine. This I have said is the revival of this is simply in one line, America increasing its sphere of influence. Okay, but slightly in a different manner because this goes against the state sovereignty. And this is a very old doctrine, Monroe Doctrine. Up we see the revival of it. And the revival right now is in a negative sense. Is that clear? Now, this is, I'm just building the context. There is a Saudi Pak Defense Pact, number one, in 2025. In 2026, we see the entire region going into a chaos. There is a regional escalation. There are proxy wars going on in the region. There is weaponization of sea line supply chains, and there is a specifically attack on energy fields. Right? Now, to make matters more complicated, now, three countries have come together. Which three countries are there? अब ये दो तो है साथ में, पाकिस्तान, Saudi, and now we will understand. So in this there are three countries right now, and very recently, कल की news है, Bangladesh is also exploring the option to join this, and these countries have said we are open. And sometimes the term used for this is Islamic NATO. Right? अब देखो, which three countries are there right now? Pakistan, Saudi, and Turkey. Now, the main question that is there that we should ask ourselves, why these countries have gone for a defense agreement? क्यों? अब देखो, there are two things here. Are all the three countries close to US? बताओ, are they close to US? Amongst these three countries, which of them is a NATO ally? How many are NATO allies? Turkey is the NATO ally. Saudi and Pakistan are special but non-NATO allies. They are also very close to US. Ab dekho. So what I've said, this Turkey is a NATO ally. What is NATO? North Atlantic Treaty Organization. ठीक है? And these two are already close to US. Right? The question to be asked, if Turkey is a NATO ally, why is Turkey making a pact with other countries? बताओ. You know what is NATO? अब देखो, just hold NATO in your mind. NATO में there is something known as Article 5. And Article 5 of NATO talks about collective defense. What is the principle of collective defense? This is very clear to us. Attack on one country is an attack on all. Why? अब देखो, NATO, already Turkey is a member of NATO. Right? Despite that, it has gone into an agreement with two other countries. So when I'm looking at the Mecca Pact, let's say the recent one, you have Pakistan, again Saudi, and Turkey. What does this pact tell me? First thing, same, it borrows. Attack on one. What is that? Attack on all. Yes or no? Attack on one is an attack on all. Some people call it, sometimes they object, this is Islamic or Muslim NATO. These countries say, as per Article 51 of the UN Charter, we are entitled to self-defense. जो हम कर रहे हैं, we are only doing in our self-defense, nothing more than that. Now, I said why they sometimes object. The reason is, this pact, agreements, guidelines are right now not clear. Not clear, or they have not made it very public also. Whether it will be exactly like NATO or not. The procedural operational requirements of it. Okay. अब that is why depends. But these countries say जो भी हम बोल रहे हैं, we are never in a mood to attack. We don't want to attack. Whatever we are doing is in our self defense. Okay, the pact, the language of the pact is to promote defense. That is the core argument. You have to promote defense. पहले समझो. This is their viewpoint they are making. It is in our self-defense as per the Article 51. Let me just make it more clear. Of the UN Charter, we are entitled for self-defense, and we are only exercising this option. But the pact says attack on one is an attack on all, which is what it makes people think of. This is just like NATO. NATO had an Article 5, and NATO's Article 5 talks about attack on one country is an attack on all. Now, what is the question? There are two main questions to remember here and two main dimensions. दो dimension है हमारे यहाँ पे. Let me write it this side. Okay. First thing is, think of USA. All this chaos is because of US actions. Okay. The first thing is, if these countries, especially Turkey, if it is a part of NATO, why are they, or what is the role of US? Okay, हम role की बात कर रहे हैं. And here the main thing we are seeing is shrinking security umbrella. Second, USA through its America First approach, etc., shows reluctance. Right? It is not being an active provider, nor does it even help. Sorry. No, I'm saying in this, one of the dimensions is what is the overall role of US in the security order, in the regional sphere, regional architecture. Because main question kya na, these three countries are related to US, close to US. Despite that, they have chosen to go for an agreement. What does it tell you? Declining, shrinking security umbrella. This is not the only region where this is seen. मैं आपको एक और एग्जांपल देता हूं. Write it in your margins. Very recently, EU has increased its defense budget. Since a very long time, EU was dependent on US security umbrella. Now EU knows in its backdrop, 5 years Russia-Ukraine war is going on, and US is not at all active. EU cannot depend on US. Similarly, these countries are also not depending on US. So the first thing we get to know, that there is no doubt we get to see a reluctant US. Second, a shrinking security umbrella. Shrinking security umbrella in both cases. NATO भी नहीं लग रहा इतना willing to support. So NATO shrinking, and more importantly, the biggest, most important member of NATO, that is US. Even that seems to be very reluctant right now. This US dimension you have to explore. पहली चीज, ठीक? Second thing, what it tells us. अब देखो, इसी चीज को I can say it in some sense as can I say decline of US hegemony? Because hegemony also depends on hard power, it also depends on soft power. So in that sense, US sphere of influence and reliability of US is declining. Right? One. Second dimension, so one is the US dimension. Second thing to keep in mind here is liberal institutionalism. Now this is a topic you read in which paper? Paper 2A. Liberal institutionalism is spoken by people like Robert Keohane, Joseph Nye. Now according to them, institutions are very important. right? They will say UN, so on and so forth are important. अब आप इसको कनेक्ट करो लिबरल इंस्टीट्यूशनलिज्म से, which means UN actions even right now on Gaza, Iran, nothing much has happened. No proactive actions, which tells you what? The question is asked on whether UN is relevant or not. 100% you will see this question in this year's mains 2026. UN at 80, okay? 80 years, right now the 81st year of UN is going on. So UN, not much is able to do, which is why countries are doing it themselves, and we say, ye jo cheez hai, we say instead of multilaterals, there is a rise of minilaterals. There is a rise of minilaterals. तो multilaterals नहीं दिख रहे हमें, हमें क्या दिख रहे हैं? Minilaterals. This is also a new trend that is coming in. Yes, good point, Woodrow Wilson. So Rowan is saying King Jong is that kid who has all the toys but no one plays with. Correct. Okay. Till here are we able to understand? Okay. First thing is this pact signifies the regional implications of US actions first of all. Okay. Second, declining reliability of US by its own allies. अब देखो इसी point को if I want to expand more, what is the message allies are getting? Even if you are a US ally, you will be slapped with tariffs. Very recently, USA slapped a lot of tariffs on which country? Canada, right? And what does Canada say? We will also now retaliate. India was slapped with how many tariffs? 50%. Later on decreased to 25, then 18. But again Trump is saying, see, aaj kuch tufani karte hain, right? What is that? So this US action with allies is very unpredictable. US with EU, with Middle East. Now it seems like USA now just simply wants to take an exit. It does not want to be involved in the region, which is why countries are coming together. And this also directly tells me there is a decline of global institutions. They are not able to keep things in check, right? And this also, for example, we saw there is no respect for sovereignty. Now I'll just tell you one thing more. The recent Iran escalation, okay? Whenever any previous US president had to do something like this, right? They used to first plan for a very long time. They used to take public into confidence and even their parliament into confidence when they used to do this. In recent Trump action, nothing has been done of that sort. Public confidence was not there, okay? Similarly, it was not ratified or even approved by the Senate. It was more like a unilateral action that was done, okay, which is a departure from existing US presidents and the existing idea of US foreign policy. So some of the Trump's actions are criticized. You have done something, but now you don't have an exit plan, and the whole region is now in turmoil. There's a huge cost that is to be paid. Okay? Now when you look at it, now there are a couple of things again to think of. One is this. Second thing, अब इसके beyond क्या है? The membership is open. So first is the US issue. First I'm writing. Second is liberal institutions. Third, its membership is open. Very recently, for example, Bangladesh expressed interest. Now the issue here is, for example, Bangladesh, if it actually becomes Islamic NATO, then there is the issue also of religious fundamentalism, right? This issue can also blow into a Shia-Sunni conflict later on, okay? This is also a challenge, although these members don't say we are Muslim NATO or Islamic NATO. This is the term that is sometimes used by some experts also, fine. So its membership is open, if more countries keep on joining it, and then there is an attack on any one country, will all of them actually do this? If they actually do the defense, again we can have like a similar regional conflict can potentially become a global conflict. So when I say membership is open, I mean there can be more consequences that can happen, right? And fourth thing always will be, because we are preparing for paper 2B as well, India. Now when ab dekho, think of Operation Sindoor, okay? And before that, what India was doing? India was making actions of Pakistan public, putting it in the FATF grey list, okay? Naming and shaming at public forums. Despite that, Pakistan was able to secure IMF loans, yes or no? Right? Despite that, now they are playing an active role in the, let's say, agreements, mediation, so on and so forth. Now, my question to you is, if a pact like this is there, what implication will be this on India? For example, if Pakistan does a misadventure, which means not Pakistan, Pakistan will say, we are not doing it, asymmetrical warfare, somebody else is doing it. And when India retaliates like it did, does that mean all the other countries will come and save Pakistan? Ab batao. This is a potential challenge. Right? Ab isme bhi I'll tell you, when I say the Indian angle, okay, India, of course not with Turkey, but with Saudi Arabia, India has very good relations, right? And Indian angle, for example, one of the apprehension, जो apprehension ये है कि इंडिया सिक्योरिटी एंड डिफेंस vis-a-vis पाकिस्तान. अब इसमें मेन चीज क्या है? हाउ देखो, ट्रेडिशनल थ्रेट क्या थी? The traditional threat India faced was a two-front war. At max, Pakistan will be supported by China. This is the threat. Now that security perception has totally changed. It is now no more a two-front war. It is a, इसको बोलते हैं नेटवर्क्ड फ्रंट वॉर. अब दो फ्रंट नहीं है, नेटवर्क है पूरा. तो टू फ्रंट वॉर, ultimately it is a networked front war, and we will be writing all of this with proper lines. Abhi to I'm just opening up the whole topic for you. Networked front war. You understand the meaning of networked? It means other countries are also connected. This can cause more issues. So from a traditional threat of a two front war, the security dilemma for India can be a networked front war. How many of you are able to follow till here? Sorry? Read this fundamentals and we can write. Okay. Till now we've written till networked front war. So what are we looking at? Four major dimensions. One is the US angle. Second is institutions collapsing. Third is because the membership is open, it can lead to a domino effect. And fourth thing is implications on India, that India's traditional threat perception will change if something of this happens, right? And already we have adversarial relations with Pakistan. Iska flip side bhi hai, by the way. The flip side is we have far better relations with Saudi. And it is ultimately the economic might, right? And it is said that if India is able to prove to the other countries what we bring to the table, they have more to gain. And if you have good trade relations, good long-term relations with the country, that is more stable relations, right? So simply a defense pact of that sense, this may be more optics and nothing much to worry on. Because India, again, in that sense, is not the first aggressor. We are a peaceful nation, we have peaceful credentials. So in that sense, we should not also be worried about it. ठीक है, follow कर रहे हैं यहाँ तक? ठीक है? हाँ, that is why I'm saying in operation, but it was not a pact of this. They actually helped supply drones. Okay, even China also helped them, right? So that was there in times of war, etc. Ultimate strategies, you have to be self-reliant. If somebody comes to your side, that is separate. Yes, Pakistan was able to get this help of Turkey. Okay, so that is true. The most holiest place for them, they have done it in Mecca, right? The holiest place for is Islam. So that is why that is why the people were saying this as Muslim NATO, Islamic NATO. That is why the term was there. But these countries are not saying that this is only limited, the membership is limited only to that part. Okay, fine. Huh. Hmm. Huh. Correct, correct. Hedging, but their collective aim was never India, the three countries. The collective aim was the destabilizing regional security architecture in Middle East. Okay, so this is their way to put themselves secure, as simple as that. So usme India is never the prime focus here for them. The main reason is they see that US security umbrella cannot be trusted. We have to do something on our own. अकेले नहीं कर पाएंगे. Already there was a defense pact between Saudi and Pakistan. Now let's bring some countries together who bring in our values, who resonate with us. That is how the idea is. Okay? Okay. Now we will be writing a couple of points here. कौन सा? Nuclear dimension for Iran. Abhi right now I'm not opening up. Okay, when I do Iran, then I'll also open up the nuclear dimension later. Okay. No, that I understand. But nuclear dimension, अलग से भी हम देखेंगे, the theory of nuclear deterrence. Okay, so don't worry, वो हम अलग से देखेंगे. That we anyways do whenever we talk about Pakistan and the issue of nuclear deterrence. See, if you talk about nuclear, Pakistan also will not be starting an unprovoked nuclear escalation. They also have, because nuclear में there is something known as MAD, mutually assured destruction, right? Hmm. Hmm. Right. Right. No, Iran would say, but this is also the hypocrisy of international politics. USA is helping them right now. Only the reactors are getting made. फिर enrichment होगा, फिर whole process होगा. तो अभी तो that will take a lot of time. Okay, and second thing is, USA and Iran right now will never come an eye to an eye. They will always be in a conflict. Saudi and USA already had good relations. They are building on that. Because back in the background, there is already a Shia Sunni conflict here, which is also there, right? And USA already had good relations with them, with the Saudis, for example, right? Nuclear dimension वाले पे अभी कुछ चीज देखेंगे, but right now, because the moment I start nuclear dimension, I have to tell you a lot of background then again. So nuclear will be a separate topic which we'll do, and we will be interconnecting with nuclear also. Okay? This question again was asked, I think, if I'm not wrong, in 2019 in your PSIR paper, whether the theory of nuclear deterrence, whether that actually works and operates in the case of India and Pakistan or not. ये होती है या नहीं होती है? ठीक है? Okay. क्या आंसर है इसका? आंसर है depends on rationality. Nuclear deterrence theory only works on rational actors. And by saying this, I've already given the answer. ठीक है? Okay. ठीक है, पहली हेडिंग लिखो. Facts. In the Mecca Defense Agreement, write the first heading, facts. Because the Mecca Joint Defense Agreement, and from now you'll use a short form of this. The Mecca Joint Defense Agreement was signed The date is not important, but I'm just telling you because it happened recently. Signed on 7th August 2026 by Saudi Arabia. What is the spelling of Turkey? Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Pakistan. At the Makkah Summit for Joint Defense. Makkah Summit for Joint Defense. The agreement commits the three countries. The agreement commits the three countries to strengthen collective security. The agreement commits the three countries to strengthen collective security, underline collective security, comma, defense cooperation, collective security, defense cooperation, and regional stability. Regional stability. Full stop. Its most important clause. Its most important clause is that an armed attack on any of the three states, armed attack on any of the three states will be treated as an attack against all. It will be treated as an attack against all. Change the paragraph. It is being compared to NATO's Article 5. It is being compared to NATO's Article 5. Full stop. The text and implementation details. The text and implementation details are limited and Saudi official clarified that its aim is not to Saudi official clarified that its aim is not to create a sectarian bloc. Its aim is not to create a sectarian bloc. What is the meaning of sectarian bloc? Now think of Shia and Sunni sects. So it is not a sectarian bloc nor a military axis. It is not a sectarian bloc and not a military axis. Sorry? Right. What is Iran? Asia. Okay. Now you write, therefore it should not be called a, therefore it should not be called a full Islamic NATO yet. The full Islamic NATO yet. Okay. Now, this we've written. Now we will go to the analysis of facts. Main चीज we are done. इसी के नीचे लिखो background. Second heading. First heading was facts. Second heading is background. Background. Now here we need to know. तो लिखो background में. West Asia has become insecure. West Asia has become insecure after the Israel-Iran escalation. After the Israel-Iran escalation, Gaza war, attacks on Gulf states, and doubts about reliability of the US security umbrella. In just 3 lines, we've written everything. And doubts about the reliability of US security umbrella. Full stop, right? We've written 4 things here. One is the Israel-Iran escalation. Second, Gaza war. Third, attack on the Gulf states. And fourth, the US security umbrella is shrinking. That we've written. Now last, right, the pact builds on Saudi-Pakistan. It builds on Saudi-Pakistan strategic mutual defense agreement. Bracket September 2025. And adds Turkey's military industrial weight. It adds Turkey's military industrial weight. Okay. No, definitely. Okay. In fact, one more question is there. For example, if the countries are moving away from US security umbrella, the question is then whose security umbrella are they going for? In 3 countries, there is only one country which has nuclear weapons, which is Pakistan. Okay. So again, the question is also going to be this also, right? So for example, abhi kuch aur bhi analysis we'll be writing it. Till now we have seen the background and we've seen the facts. Okay. Just a quick revision. This you will be getting, so don't need to write it. 1 second. Just a quick recap. What have we seen? Mecca mein, Pakistan, Saudi, they have signed a defense agreement. You've just written attack on one is attack on all. Fine. Saudi Pakistan Pact of 2025. This has been upgraded. Islam's holiest city, Mecca. Right. Now, one thing important is Pakistan's year of rehabilitation. What is happening? Pakistan has become a mediator between US and Iran, and again feted in Washington means, Riyadh means. Basically, the role of Pakistan is increasing. That is what we are seeing. Okay. And we will be analyzing again the Pakistan role and the US. Okay. Again in more detail when we do India-Pakistan relations. Right. Now, Pakistan is the only Muslim majority nuclear state we are aware of. Okay. Now, whose umbrella shades Riyadh? Question ये क्यों है? क्योंकि अब ये देखो. And you now write this line somewhere. Why would Saudi, who was protected by America for 80 years, 80, buy insurance from Pakistan? Right? Why would Saudi, which was protected by America for 80 years, 80, why would it buy insurance from Pakistan? And that is by this question. Whose nuclear umbrella now shades Riyadh? Is it America? Is it Pakistan? Again, a question to ponder on. Yes? Can we say this? Okay. Now, write the heading analysis. In some time, you will be understanding this dimension. Just write it so that you are active in the class. अब आप लिखेंगे heading analysis. First point देखो, this agreement, and we'll be writing in first two main points. If you see our mind map, इस mind map में सबसे दो important points हैं. One is the US aspect. Second is institutions. First, we will address that. Then I will make another small diagram of dimensions. I'll tell you 5 overall dimensions related to this. Fine. So first point, please write. So this agreement shows the importance. Right. This agreement shows the movement. This agreement shows the movement from US-led security dependence from US-led security dependence to regional self-help. Self-help is a term related again to realist, to regional self-help. Pehli cheez important. Okay. Full stop now. Now write in the same line. For realists. Now, give me any example of realist that you are aware of. Hans Zimmer? नहीं. Morgenthau, बिल्कुल सही, right? Hans Morgenthau and Mearsheimer, and you have एक भूल गए बीच में, Kenneth Waltz. So you have Mearsheimer, you have Kenneth Waltz, you have you have Morgenthau, Waltz, Mearsheimer. What is the core of realist? Ultimate main thing for them is the main objective of foreign policy is preservation of national interest. They will again see states are power seeking, states are insecure. To feel secure, you have to maximize power, right? So realist approach here also is very valid. The realist approach will say, when these countries know the umbrella is shrinking, what should they do? Self-help. This is how you bring in the theory aspect. So right, what have we written for realists? When states feel insecure, अब realist आपने लिखा, in the bracket you can write down any name, right? Morganthew. So you're writing it like this. You have written for realists. So either write like and the name of a realist. When you write, just write in the bracket. Okay, you can even bring in Mearsheimer, any name that you remember. Then don't write 3 or 4 names, only one. Examiner then also knows that you know a prominent personality with that school of thought. Okay, so what are we writing? For realists, when states feel insecure, for realists, when states feel insecure and doubt external protection, and they doubt Turkey's industrial weight, W-E-I-G-H-T, weight, which means it is very solid in those technologies, right? When states feel insecure and doubt external protection, they build their own deterrence. They build their own deterrence arrangement. What is deterrence? Deterrence is to deter. Best way to define. What is to deter? To create deterrence. Deter means to create fear, right? How do you create fear? When you have some credible strength, credible power, right? This is their deterrence arrangement, as simple as that. Why is there NATO? Again, deterrence. You know that if you will attack any one person, everybody will come to fight. Think of in normal sense. आज तेरे भाई की लड़ाई है. Everybody is coming to fight. What is that? Collective defense. Now, in your paper, sometimes the question comes. Please write this as a homework right now. In our classes, we'll be doing it in paper 2A. The question is somewhere else कहीं पे लिखेंगे. Difference between collective security, collective defense should be very clear in your mind. Collective security versus collective defense. Yes, that is also correct. Fear of consequences. Okay, Rohan. Money, your point, statism, survival, self-help. Correct. Okay. What have I said? What is the homework? Difference between collective security, collective defense. Abhimanyu, you will tell me. बिल्कुल बस, right? So think of liberal institutionalist, League of Nations. League of Nations will talk about collective security, idea of initially Woodrow Wilson. Okay, and collective defense is NATO, right? And there is a difference in both of them, both these terms, and this question has been asked. Collective security versus collective defense. Okay, static में भी ये topic है, which you will see again later. So first point we have seen is about US. ठीक है? Come to second point. Right? It also represents minilateral security cooperation. Very important keyword. It also represents minilateral security cooperation. I hope you now know what is the meaning of minilateral, right? It is not a universal organization like UN. It is not a universal organization like UN, nor a formal nor a formal alliance like NATO, nor a formal alliance like NATO, but but a group of small states, a group of small states coming together, coming together for shared threats and shared interests. Okay? Now, this we have written, but sometimes you will say, can I bring in a scholar for a more nuanced outlook? Now, I will tell you two people to quote here. Okay? सबसे पहले लिखेंगे write the name Kabir Taneja. Now, this person you can quote specifically when you are talking about, he will mostly be writing about this part. Gaza, Afghanistan, Golan Heights, okay, Qatar. His area of research is this, the West Asia, right? So let me tell you one more source. Whenever you have time, see this. How many of you know DD? ये देखना. This is Kabir Taneja. This is Sriram Chaulia. Okay. If you have time, you can also go through this video. This is 20 minutes odd video. ठीक है? DD India पे there is a whole playlist. ठीक है? काम काम के articles सुन सकते हो. Okay. I will be just summarizing what he has said here in just 1 or 2 lines. If you have time, you can go through this. Okay. Write the name and see from the very first class, those who are doing the first class, sometimes you don't have scholars. हर चीज में C Raja Mohan or Harsh V Pant. So again, I will first tell you some people who specialize in a certain field. Okay. Otherwise, if you have no other option, then to we will have multi-purpose, multi-grain bread. Okay, when you'll use for everything. So first write Kabir Taneja. लिखो डैश करके. Gulf states are no longer depending only on the US security umbrella. It's a good point to quote. Gulf states are no longer depending only on the US security umbrella, full stop. They are building multiple defense partnerships. They are building multiple defense partnerships with US, China, US, China, India, Pakistan, and others. Second, right? So in this, what he's trying to say, the Gulf states, this is a broad assessment of Gulf. They initially were only dependent on US. Now they are now not just dependent on US. They are broadening, having diversified partnership. Second, right? Again, Kabir Taneja. Saudi Arabia is not abandoning the US. Saudi Arabia is not abandoning the US, but adding new security options new security options with Pakistan and Turkey. नेक्स्ट लिखो, इसमें ओपन शायद नहीं होगा. टिम मार्शल इज अ वेरी पॉपुलर ऑथर. आई जस्ट, ये नाम सुना है बुक का, प्रिजनर्स ऑफ ज्योग्राफी. ओके, very recently he wrote a piece in the Times, and he's saying, if you just read the heading, a new alliance is being forged in the Middle East, but it is no NATO. So he says it is wrong to say it is NATO. Right? Tim Marshall, second opinion. Tim Marshall. Tim Marshall, put a dash, लिखो इसको. Right? देखो, he rejects Islamic NATO exaggeration. He rejects Islamic NATO exaggeration full stop. He argues that the pact has NATO-like phrase. He argues that the pact has NATO-like phrase, but not NATO-like institutional depth. But not NATO-like institutional depth. Full stop. For him, this is a part of a new global pattern. For him, this is a part of new global pattern where regional powers are buying insurance. ठीक है, clear है? Third right, Happymon Jacob. This article I think is open. You may be able to read it. And the heading of the article tells you the summary of the article. Mega pact. Interests are primary, not alliances. Okay. I think this is what I think you were saying, Abhishek, that all of them have their own interest. That is the reason why they are coming together. So third opinion, right? Third is Happymon, Happy, Happy, MON, Happymon Jacob. Right? Happymon Jacob. And what you have to write is what I'll tell you. Look, he argues that look through the pact, look through the pact and not merely at the pact. Look through the pact and not merely at the pact. Okay? By the way, this article starts with something that we see often. Lord Palmerston. ये सुना है आपने? Countries don't have permanent friends, no permanent enemies, only permanent interest. This is attributed to Palmerston. This is how he opens this article. So sometimes when you read articles, you get a perspective what is to be written. कैसे लिखना है? His core argument, पूरी बात ये बोलेंगे कि just like India has multiple options open, even the West countries are doing the same thing. So don't, what I've said, अभी क्या बोला हमने? Don't look through the pact. Don't just look at the pact. You need to know the core reason. The core reason is interest. Their interests are aligning. That is the core reason. Write it. Full stop. It is a symptom of multi-aligned West Asia. It is a symptom of multi-aligned Asia, where Saudi and Turkey are also doing what India itself does. Saudi and Turkey are also doing what India itself does, dash, keeping options open. This is a more practical outlook. Okay, and if I just go through his last conclusion, right? Interests are the permanent thing. We should know, we should identify our interest, we should revise it. Same case he says in West Asia. And he says basically, right now, if we view the pact with a suspicion, it means we are rooted in the old ideas, right? Holding grudges is the opposite. Have to have pragmatism. India is saying you should have a multipolar order, multi-alignment. Saudi ने वही चीज करी है. It has the right, just as Turkey has it. Okay, so this will be a more practical perspective that we can say. It is the interest that is converging in, right? But we have seen many reasons. सबसे पहला किसका point था? Kabir Taneja, and he says now they are going beyond the US security umbrella. Tim Marshall's main argument is this is not like NATO. Phrasing is not like NATO, but depth is not like NATO at all. And Happyman Jacob will talk about it is the interest and not the alliance. And India should be pragmatic enough to see that. Okay. So your initially first 2 points, these were simple points. हमने start कैसे करा था? The shrinking US order. First point. Second point one was minilateral issues. Now I have given you 3 scholars with very specialized views on how this is being looked at. Okay? Now, whenever you are reading your notes, first try to, in your simple words, try to see what the scholar is saying. You can easily rephrase your scholars, right? Out of these 3, I will again say you have to remember highest priority should be Kabir Taneja. Okay? More nuanced. Tim Marshall will give you a European perspective, a Western perspective. That this is not like NATO. You are simply making a false exaggeration. And Happyman Jacob is linking it to India. अगर सवाल आता है, should India be scared? What are Indian foreign policy options? For example, we can say we should look it from an interest point of view. That is, and by the way, any opinion is just one opinion. We can also counter an opinion. Point is like, right? So always present multiple arguments in your answer. Till here, are we able to follow? Fine. Now, we will be adding now a couple of more dimensions to this analysis, right? So within the analysis, write a mini heading. You can draw this diagram also, and later on for each keyword, we will be writing one line each. Okay. सबसे पहला है यहाँ पे, there is a security dimension. This also helps you when you revise your notes. आपको simple तो दिखता है, हाँ, these are the things I have to talk about. There is a West Asia dimension. So security, West Asia. What is realpolitik? It is realism, right? So this is more practical in nature. So we'll also argue this is a case, is it a case of Islamic solidarity or is it real politic? This is also a dimension. Next dimension, many of you were saying, what about Pakistan? I will take this up separately again as a dimension. How do we assess the role of Pakistan in this case, right? And last thing in this question, because this is a question of great power rivalry, I have to bring in US and China dimension as well. Ab dekho. This actually helps you think. Whenever a question, I have told you in PSIR, अगर A and B पे question है, C को लाना ही पड़ेगा. If the question is between India Nepal ties, C will be Sri Lanka. Relation between India US, bring in Russia, bring in China, bring in Pakistan. 3 more variables. Here we have 5 variables additionally. 2 I have already dealt with. One was declining US security umbrella and one was minilaterals are rising, multilaterals are fracturing. See, this you will draw, and just after this, one by one we'll be writing one line each for each. Okay? So whenever you are revising your notes, if you just see this and you know, acha, I know what is there in security, I know what is there in West Asia, your job is done. Fine. Okay. So first write security. Okay. Now in the security dimension, write one line. Likho, Turkey brings NATO experience, comma, drones and defense industry. Turkey brings NATO experience, drones and defense industry, comma, Pakistan brings a large army and a nuclear status. Pakistan brings large army and a nuclear status. Full stop. Saudi brings money and regional influence. So yahan pe we are seeing what each of them is bringing. Saudi brings money and regional influence. Full stop. This creates a deterrence triangle. This creates a deterrence triangle. Clear? Right? So first dimension is related to security. What the pact brings in. We will see the relative strength of each country. Turkey is bringing drones, defense. It is solid in that. What is Saudi bringing? Money and regional influence. What is Pakistan bringing? Large army and nuclear. All of this combined creates a regional deterrence. It creates a deterrence, right? First thing. Second dimension is West Asia dimension. Because this pact reflects that Israel-Iran conflict, comma, US unpredictability, and Gulf insecurity. And Gulf insecurity may spill over into the wider region. It may spill over into the wider region, right? There is always going to be a regional dimension to the pact, right? This fear is there. The fear has operationalized the pact. Second dimension. Third, right? Third is what? Islamic solidarity versus realpolitik. So put a dash and write. The language uses Islamic solidarity. The language uses Islamic solidarity, but the logic is strategic. But the logic is strategic. Put a dash. Defense capability. Defense capability, comma, deterrence, and regional influence. And regional influence. Regional influence. Come to fourth dimension, Pakistan. In Pakistan, now we will also be writing the point I made, that Saudi Arabia is now buying insurance from Pakistan, and this because Pakistan is going to be the only nuclear weapon, right? So Pakistan में ये वाले line लिखेंगे. Pakistan is the only Muslim majority nuclear state. Pakistan is the only Muslim majority nuclear state. Full stop. Right? Next. Pakistan gains strategic depth beyond South Asia. Pakistan gains strategic depth beyond South Asia and tries to project itself as a security provider in the Muslim world. Security provider during or in the Muslim world. Come to last dimension, China US. अब China US dimension में whose commentary will be useful? It will be again Kabir Taneja, and he will simply say what? That countries are not abandoning US. Nobody would want to abandon if you have had good relations, but it is also true they are diversifying. They are not just only dependent on them. This is exactly what Kabir Taneja would have said. We have already written that. So here you write in the US China dimension, right? It signals that US partners, in West Asia are diversifying security options. Okay, security options without necessarily abandoning the US. Without necessarily abandoning the US. Okay. Now, till here, if you've written, we will now come to the last dimension of this topic. The last dimension of this topic is related to India. Okay. what this pact means for India. Simple as that. Because sometimes the examiner will use the term that Mecca something pact agreement is there. What implications will this have on India and regional security? Okay. Now, to understand this, what pact means for India, of course, we have to, in this sense, know concerns that India may think. Why India will have some concerns. Second thing we'll see for India, we don't have to be alarmist, but we have to be very alert. दोनों में difference है. And here we will end it with some opinions. Like Happyman Jacob, he says that it should be looked simply as diversification of interest and not just an alliance. So यहाँ पे we will write some opinions. How should India navigate this? Right? Again, we should work on our capability. Right? Now, if I talk about concerns, आप मुझे बताओ, what concerns will India have in this pact? Something we have already discussed. हाँ? Right? अब देखो, concerns अभी हम writing, of course इसको properly भी लिखेंगे, but first is the traditional security threat is now increasing. What term did we use? Networked front war. किसको याद है term? याद है? From a two front war, we are now possibly the danger of a pehla. First dimension is related to security. Second, let's, if I make it more explicit, the issue is, will this be diplomatically used? So I'm saying whether there will be a diplomatic usage of this pact for bilateral issues also. Hoga, nahi hoga, this remains to be seen. Third thing, already India saw Turkey drone, again weapon industry, it is very active. Whether Turkey will be directly helping Pakistan, and this again can become a challenge for India. This is also a challenge for India. The first thing is, India's traditional security threats are increasing. From a threat of two front war, we are now looking at a networked front war. One issue. Network का मतलब क्या हुआ? If you disturb any single pop node, the entire network will be against you. Okay. Second is Pakistan. Can Pakistan diplomatically also use it against you? If there is some issue, whether all the countries will then come to resolve the issue, because India says what? We will solve the issue bilaterally. ठीक? तीसरा issue क्या होगा? What if countries like Turkey now actively supply weapons? They already did that in the Operation Sindoor. Will that be a challenge? Because this is a defense pact. Yes or no? These are the concerns that India has. How many of you are able to understand this? Basic concerns समझ में आ रही है हमें? ठीक है? Now, we will be writing this now in a slightly refined language. This I've just explained it to you. Right? Concerns को थोड़ा अच्छे से लिखेंगे. Because this is the most important part. Okay? So लिखो, Indian concerns include, you write this point wise. पहला लिखो, India's traditional two-front problem. India's traditional two-front problem can become either you use this term networked front problem, another term that is also used nested front problem. ये भी टर्म यूज कर सकते हो आप. टू फ्रंट बिकमिंग नेस्टेड फ्रंट प्रॉब्लम or network front problem, whatever you want to use. First issue, India's traditional two front problem is becoming a nested front problem. First, second लिखो concern. Pakistan is no longer a lone adversary. Pakistan is no longer a lone, this is lone, L-O-N-E. Pakistan is no longer a lone adversary, but a networked one. But a networked one nested inside a Gulf alliance. Networked one nested inside a Gulf alliance. Just a different way of saying what we have seen. ठीक है? तो एक तो adversary has changed. No longer are you battling a single adversary. First issue, right? This is what we've written. Now, next you can write next point लिखो whether Turkey Pakistan defense cooperation, Turkey Pakistan defense cooperation in drones, naval platforms, and electronic warfare. Naval platforms and electronic warfare becomes serious. Next concern, whether any future crisis in West Asia, whether any future crisis in West Asia will affect India's energy security. Will it affect India's energy security, comma, diaspora and shipping. Energy security, diaspora and shipping. Okay? These are all the concerns India would have. Okay. Now, it is not that just we have some concerns. We also have some buffers. Buffers means with these countries, especially with Saudi, we have good relations. So it is not that automatically Saudi will forget its interest and directly start a war with India, right? So there are our own leverages also, right? Concerns likha aapne. Now write the next heading: India's leverage. India's leverage. First लिखो in the leverage. देखो Indian Saudi ties are strong. India Saudi ties are strong in energy investment. They are strong in energy investment, diaspora, and shipping. Diaspora and shipping. Next, 2. India's Saudi ties are strong in energy investment. They are strong in energy investment, diaspora, and shipping. They are strong in energy investment, diaspora, and shipping. Next, 3. India's Saudi ties are strong in energy investment, diaspora, and strategic dialogue. Diaspora and strategic dialogue. Second, right? Saudi Arabia avoided taking Pakistan side. Saudi Arabia avoided taking Pakistan's side in the recent India-Pakistan conflict in a direct manner. In a direct manner. Directly they did not do anything. Third लिखो, Turkey and Saudi. Turkey and Saudi also have their own interests. Turkey and Saudi also have their own interests and will not automatically fight Pakistan's wars. Okay? Now, change the paragraph. We have done with the buffer. Now we are ending that what should India's final approach should be. Okay? For example, we should not be alarmist. Right? All of a sudden we hit the panic button. But we should be carefully watching everything. Additionally, India can deepen its cooperation with Saudi Arabia and other countries so that you have enough goodwill, enough interest, so that the other country also knows there will be a consequence if we go against this, right? Any country which is going to a war already calculates the cost and benefit, right? So if India, for example, has a deep laid cooperation with Saudi Arabia, so that goes a long way, right? And India should maintain its approach. We believe in multi-alignment. We're able to have good relations. Acha, with Pakistan, we have made it very clear. With Pakistan, we use a term conditional bilateralism, which means bilateral conditions or bilateral relations will only resume on a condition. What is the condition? If Pakistan takes credible actions against terrorism and terrorist activities. Similarly, Indus Water Treaty mein what did we say? Blood and water cannot flow together. Talking of Indus Water Treaty, in this year's GS1, उन्होंने पूछा rivers and conflict in South Asia, something that people of PSIR do it every time. You know Indus Water Treaty, you know Brahmaputra with Bangladesh, with China, and you also know Teesta with Bangladesh. This was what was to be written in that question. Okay, not a very difficult question. Chalo, coming back. Now, लिखो India's position. India's position should be cautious but not alarmist. Right? India should study implications. India should study implications of the pact comma protect its national security, and keep options open with Riyadh and Ankara. What is Riyadh and Ankara? See, many times in IR, sometimes without mentioning the country's name, we write its capital, right? Riyadh is a reference to Saudi. Ankara is a reference to Turkey. Keeping options open with Riyadh and Ankara. Full stop. देखो Indian या India's policy should be engage Saudi Arabia, watch Turkey, Pakistan military cooperation, watch Turkey, Pakistan military cooperation, strengthen Gulf diplomacy, strengthen Gulf diplomacy, deepen maritime partnerships, deepen maritime partnerships, and maintain deterrence against Pakistan, maintain deterrence against Pakistan. Last line लिखो, for India, the Mecca Pact, for India, the Mecca Pact is a strategic signal. For India, the Mecca Pact is a strategic signal that West Asia is moving towards regional security self-help, regional security self-help, while Pakistan is trying to convert that shift into diplomatic leverage, ठीक है. Now open a fresh page. बहुत कुछ पढ़ लिया अभी, right? Now I will give you a question. I will set a small timer. ठीक. In this, in fact, we will do two questions abhi, two different type of questions. In the very first question, you have to just write the introduction, only the introduction. Okay? So preferably have a blank page, right? And this is an exercise we will be doing constantly. Iske baad we will be doing almost like a debate. I'll give you a question, link to what I've told you. The floor will be open. Somebody will come here, explain their side. Hello, I'm just kidding. I will ask you. ठीक है? Otherwise आप कहोगे sir time हो रहा है अभी. I have a new class. ठीक है? So the very first question is a relatively simple question. Question देखो. The Mecca Defense Pact signals the end of American securities in the Gulf. Please write the question. I'll set a timer of 5 minutes. 5 क्या छोड़ो, you just have to write the introduction. सिर्फ inertia तोड़ो अपने दिमाग में. The Mecca Defense Pact, again people reading this online, you write the entire statement, okay, whatever comes to your mind. How will you introduce it? Signals the end of American security guarantees in the Gulf. Only the introduction. Only the introduction. The Mecca Defense Pact signals the end of American security guarantees in the Gulf. ये तो आप नहीं पता, कहीं से भी शुरू हो सकता है. And I want some effort. मुश्किल लगे आसान लगे कोई बात नहीं. You have to put in effort, right? Whatever comes to mind. Offline में तो again the good thing is I can see your copies. People watching this online, I hope you've already seen what I've asked you. You just try to write it, as simple as that. Very longish for introduction. 5 मिनट है, इसका ये नहीं पूरा आंसर लिख देंगे. अभी जस्ट फोकस ऑन इंट्रोडक्शन. तो रिलेटिवली गुड. और किसी ने ट्राई किया अभी? इसमें ना द फर्स्ट लाइन वाज फाइन. यू आफ्टर दिस सीधे जंप करो इस पे मेका पे. जो आपने एक्सप्लेन करा ना अमेरिका फर्स्ट रिलेक्टेंस, वो हम बॉडी में ला सकते हैं बाद में. इंट्रोडक्शन में अगेन ज्यादा एक्सप्लेन करेंगे, इंट्रोडक्शन विल लूज इट्स चार्म. आपने लिखा? देखो इट्स ओके, वी आर राइटिंग. अभी आई टेल यू व्हाट शुड बी देयर. दो तीन तरह से वी कैन इंट्रोड्यूस दिस क्वेश्चन. ओके, और कोई आप भेजो. हेलो, देखो everything is right, but this should not be in the introduction. B2 bombers not needed, Houthis not needed, Nathans not needed. ठीक है, इंट्रोडक्शन में हमने देखो सवाल क्या कह रहा है, ये जो डिफेंस पैक्ट है इट सिग्नल्स एंड ऑफ अमेरिकन सिक्योरिटी गारंटीज इन द गल्फ. पहली बात है, दिस स्टेटमेंट इज वन साइडेड. इवन इफ आई राइट एन आंसर टू दिस, आई हैव टू इन द इंट्रोडक्शन, हमने बताया ही नहीं व्हाट इज मेका डिफेंस पैक्ट. Most of you have explained America का aspect, but nobody here has talked about the what is the defense pact about. समझ आ रहा है आपको? अब ये देखो, this is a good introduction. मेका डिफेंस पैक्ट साइन बिटवीन तीनों कंट्रीज के नाम है. सिग्नल्स, अब इन्होंने क्या लिखा, राइज ऑफ मिनीलेटरलिज्म इन द सेक ऑफ लेवरेजिंग नेशनल इंटरेस्ट. बहुत अच्छा इंट्रोडक्शन है, ठीक. एंड देन due to unpredictability of US decisions, right? It signals a shift from US security to regional instability. Point is, introduction, this is a still better introduction. Now, I think some of you have written it online. Let me see. Rohan is there. Recent Mecca Defense Pact has risen many questions regarding declining US defense umbrella as well as solidarity. Recent pact between, देखो इसमें ना, देखो what should be a good introduction, and there are variations. The more you write it, the better. You know so many things already. इतना कुछ पता है अब तो, इतना कुछ लिख लिया है. इंट्रोडक्शन मेन चीज क्या होनी चाहिए? इंट्रोडक्शन should tell me the core essence. For example, the question made, what are the keywords in the question? Mecca Defense Pact, ठीक है. It signals the end of American security guarantees in the Gulf. It signals. Pehle, what I'll do, I'll take this question. I will first tell you how to think about this question. Almost, this is the question. Whenever you are seeing a question, divide it in your mind. First, do it in a copy many times. हमें ऐसा सोचना पड़ेगा. You have to have an introduction. I was saying first focus on this. ठीक? But let's say if I have this whole question, it signals the end of American security guarantees. It means I have to have a body. अब यहाँ पे बोल रहा है, it signals the end of. I would have said what is the pact. Then the question is why the pact? Yes or no? In that, of course, I will talk about reasons. Major reason क्या होगी? US being unpredictable. That will be the major part of my answer. Okay, so you will explain US ka issue, but you can also go beyond US. We have seen other issues also. Now, here itself, we can talk about opinions in the body. Okay, we have seen people like who say it is not correct to say this is end of American security guarantees. It is simply what? America is now not the only option. So when this is the, देखो ये statement is one-sided. We can agree to it for some time, but we can also bring the counter perspective. It is incorrect to say, because Saudi still maintains, and all these three countries have still good relations with US. Yes, but yes, they have chosen to diversify. You can diversify without abandoning US. वो सब part हमारा body में आएगा, ठीक है? So all the analysis, what this pact is, you can even say how this pact is regarded as NATO, but people like criticize that it does not have the depth of NATO. So I hope you know in the body what is to be done. अब आते हैं हम introduction पे, ठीक? What are the rules for an introduction? It should be crisp, short, and after that it should weave into the body. सवाल क्या है? Mega pact. Best thing would be to tell which countries are there. Some of you wrote, some of you missed writing the countries. अगर intro में नहीं लिखोगे फिर कहाँ लिखोगे? Right? So in this, the recent ये pact between, I can mention the names of the countries. अब देखो, don't exactly copy the statements in the, so don't write it signals the end of security guarantees as this. It is a repetition, it is the waste of our words. So what we have written, for example, the recent Mecca Defense Pact, yeah, recent between this, highlights, signal को मैंने highlight कर दिया. How? अब देखो, अब I can have variations. How? Regional security perceptions, right? Due to US unpredictability can lead to shared interests. हो गया? अब इसके बाद मैं पढ़ूंगा in more detail why this has happened, and then you will tell the background. Background don't bring in the introduction. In the background you will tell, now the recent US Israel Iran escalations have heightened the security threats in the Gulf. वो मेरा body में आएगा. And then you mention, despite being close to US and despite Turkey being a member of NATO, the countries chose to move away from US security umbrella architecture. But this is to be there in the body. Introduction में simple सी चीज है, crisp to the point. Should not exceed more than 4 lines. 10 marker में go for 3 lines. Essence आ जाए हमारा, right? So tell what is the pact, who are the countries, and very in brief gist what has happened. That's it. Every other part will go to the body. Body में आप explain करेंगे इस चीज को. And in body, the main core demand will be the American security guarantees, right? And you will say it is America who's flouting the rules, going against the established liberal order, UN, etc., being silent on that, which is why the countries, for their own good, for their converging interests, have tried to create a regional deterrence. अच्छा, regional deterrence पे हम यहाँ ला सकते थे. That the Mecca Pact between the 3 countries, नाम लिखा हमने, okay, shows declining trust on US security guarantee and their own self-help for regional deterrence. Done. And then in the body tell from a realist perspective all that we have written. So introduction एक बार में perfect नहीं होगा. After the class again think about how to write an introduction, write it. And don't stop at the introduction, then focus on how to conclude this. Conclusion पे time लगाएंगे. And when you are satisfied, it is not too long, it is not too verbose, and it gives me the essence of the question. इसलिए सोचो आराम से. Many times people, and you will see questions like this in the exam, कोई बड़ी बात नहीं है. वहां पे we are not prepared. We know so much, we put everything that we know. Some of the people here have made that mistake. You have so much of background knowledge. Background explain नहीं करना मुझे introduction में. उसके लिए मेरे पास body है explain करने के लिए. So introduction is a simple snapshot. The more you link it to current and give a basic detail, उतना अच्छा है. How many of you are following till here? समझ रहे हो? ठीक है? I think yours was good. Slightly थोड़ा short हो सकता है. You tried to bring in some good aspects. Okay? I think a couple of yours thinking was also fine. Your also the essence is fine, but it is slightly longish in nature. Okay? Which can be trimmed on. Okay. Now, अब एक क्वेश्चन मैं दूंगा जिसके आपको प्रोज भी सोचने हैं और उसके कॉन्स भी सोचने हैं. ठीक है? It is like a debate. Almost every question in PSIR is like a debate. You should know how to argue for the case, how to argue against the case. ठीक है? So the question that you will write the question, facts in support, facts in against, and already we have done this in the class today. So it's nothing new I'm giving you. This is my way of brainstorming, knowing that you know the main content of the class. ठीक है? Please write the question. This is a slightly expansive question in a sense. Is the American era in the Gulf over? I want you to write both aspects. Which means if a question like this comes, you need to know both sides. You will support it. It seems like the era is over. But you will also counter it, that America still remains an important player in the region. Whatever you have seen from today's class, whatever background knowledge you have, जो भी है हमारे पास, इसको लिखेंगे. उसके बाद I'll present arguments on both sides. Because see, I'm telling you, Gulf, West Asia, I mean, people have challenges. And this is not the only way we're covering it. I will cover it through other lectures also. Sometimes the lecture, if it is on Israel, etc., then I'll again cover the Gulf with you. But this, through this, you will have a very strong knowledge and you will know the area inside out. Question समझ में आ गया हमें? Is the American era in the Gulf over? क्या वो over हो चुकी है? In the meantime, I'll set a timer, and in the meantime, I'll also open up the newspapers. You also had asked me for the newspaper. एक बार कैसे पढ़ना है, क्या करना है, वो also भी कर लेंगे. I think till 2:30, right? First class है तो I think don't want to overstretch. After that, आपकी आदत पड़ जाएगी. There are people who are already part of the previous classes. They have the stamina. And make sure you also, all of you will have the stamina to sit. No, of course I give breaks, तो ऐसा नहीं breaks नहीं होते. In the meanwhile, I'll just try to open the newspapers. Try to write arguments on both sides. This improves your critical thinking. One of the best ways to do that is this. देख लिया? इफ यू राइट 2 points each, बहुत अच्छा है, दैट्स अ गुड एफर्ट. थर्ड पॉइंट सही नहीं है, बताऊंगा क्यों. अच्छा है, गुड अटेम्प्ट. थर्ड पॉइंट में स्टार मार्क लगाना. आई विल टेल यू इन द नेक्स्ट क्लास ऑल्सो. गुड पॉइंट्स इन द आर्ग्यूमेंट सपोर्ट. फेली गुड, फेली गुड. ओके, फेयर. देखा आपने? थोड़ा सा ना, दिस पासिंग इज स्लाइटली कॉम्प्लिकेटेड. नॉट लाइक स्ट्रेट ऑफ, नहीं ये स्ट्रेट ऑफ हॉर्मुज बन गया है अभी. देखो, पहला पॉइंट आपने देखा, यूएस एग्जिट फ्रॉम लिबरल इंस्टीट्यूशंस. वेरी ब्रॉड वेक पॉइंट, यहाँ के लिए नहीं सही है. सवाल है, इज द अमेरिकन एरा इन द गल्फ ओवर? गल्फ के लिए स्पेसिफिक पॉइंट चाहिए मुझे. यूएस अनप्रेडिक्टेबिलिटी स्टिल फाइन, ठीक है. सॉवरेंटी वाला इशू है, ठीक है. अब इसमें भी जो लिखो, ब्रैकेट में होना चाहिए ईरान दिमाग में आपके. हमारे हर एक पॉइंट स्पेसिफिक होना चाहिए टू गल्फ. ओके. हाँ, अब hedging my countries, for example, despite USA being very close to these three nations, they still went for a MECA pact, which means they do not believe in USA's security architecture. टैरिफ की अनप्रेडिक्टेबिलिटी है, ओके, फेयर पॉइंट. आई थिंक समबडी, हाँ उन्होंने पीछे ही हैड शेयर्ड. गुड्स पॉइंट इज इंक्रीजिंग चाइनीज प्रेजेंस इन द रीजन. दैट्स अ गुड काउंटर पॉइंट. ओके, मतलब दैट्स अ गुड पॉइंट. अमेरिका स्टिल होल्ड्स इकोनॉमिक एंड मिलिट्री, फेयर पॉइंट. गुड रिलेशन स्टिल कंटिन्यूज. इसमें तो इजराइल लिखना चाहिए था. मैं, सम ऑफ यू हैव रिटन इन द काउंटर इजराइल. ओके, ठीक है. अब देखते हैं इसको. देखो, this is again a question that will not only prepare you for critical thinking for writing mains answers, but even for interview. अब इस तरह क्वेश्चन के ना ऑलवेज बी ओपन कि चलो ऑन द स्पॉट सोचते हैं. ऑन द स्पॉट सोचना, आई एम टेलिंग यू, इज अ वेरी क्रूशियल स्किल. Sometimes you think, "Kini, sir, help me prepare all the introductions beforehand, all the conclusions beforehand." It is okay for some static topics. Many topics on the spot बनाने पड़ते हैं. Despite all the effort you will put in paper 2, I'm telling you, last 2 years of paper 2 have been tough. And on the spot सोचा नहीं जाता मैं. In every class that you will see now, every class, including the static classes, you will be put through some brainstorming and answer writing. And इसका फायदा क्या? After 2, 3, 4 months, you only will see now it is easier for me to brainstorm. But somebody else will say, how are you able to think so fast? ये हमें एक्सरसाइज करनी है, ठीक है. Now, the question was, is the American, and let me also see a couple of responses from online. Okay, I think Rohan, Kajal, Prashant, you are active. हाँ. Hmm. अच्छा, I just read out the introduction to the first question. That's a good introduction by Kajal. Defense Pact between, तीनों नाम लिख दिए. Aims to promote collective security, defense cooperation, and regional security as the US security umbrella shrinks. बहुत short है, काम की चीज आ गई सारी की सारी, ठीक है. Yes, may you have written mini lateral. We've just discussed US Iran consequences, fair point. Trade instability, crude oil fluctuations. Okay. In fact, you, how many of you are aware? Acha, why does US not engage in Gulf so much right now? Hmm? बताओ. किस चीज का? शेल. Earlier, USA was very involved in the Gulf. Why? It did not have oil. Anywhere you will see oil. For example, if samosa wala is making samosa, USA will be interested. Why? There is oil. That's a popular joke that goes around. Anywhere you have oil, you will have US. Right now, USA was able to discover shale gas reserves in its own area. Right? It's a separate topic why India is not able to explore shale gas reserves in India. बताओ. टेक्नोलॉजी से ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट बताओ. कॉस्ट से ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट सही है. Hydraulic fracturing is the process. It requires a lot of water. It requires guar gum and water. And it's a very technical, very precise process. It can lead to pollution also if it is not done correctly. अपने यहाँ है reserves shale gas की. But it's a very costly process. USA has a lot of expertise in it. So one of the reason is USA did not find, पहले क्या होता था? It was very much focused on this. Right now, not as much. Okay, pehla issue. Second, when we see, it moved from away from Afghanistan. When Trump had come at level, he had said, we will move. This is not our war. We see an America first approach also. Okay, so if I say, is the American era, is it over? What points prove this? One is they were less oil dependent now, and specifically shale था उनके पास. और क्या पॉइंट है? No, but the countries will not depend much on Russia. Russia already faces a lot of tariffs. India is able to buy the cheap discounted oil, but USA does not allow most of the countries to buy it directly from Russia. Okay. So one is this. Of course, अब यहाँ पे APEC, OPEC, वो सारे अलग points हैं. How this happens. एक और term है. I think some of you know, but please read about it. You know this term? Abhi in the state of Hormuz crisis, this term became important. Rentier state. What is the rentier state? The states, yes, depends on oil for its revenues, etc. Rentier state hai. Right? So one is this. So in general, this is one point. For example, with Afghanistan, in that they moved out. For some years in the recent times, USA was not very involved in this region. But in the recent times, specifically, okay, in the Israel-Iran conflict, it again came back. But we already know right now, the Mecca Pact shows what? Declining US security umbrella. Right? ये तो सही है. But if I want to become a devil's advocate, that it is still not over. Now I will tell you a big update. ये अपडेट फॉलो करी किसी ने? 2 दिन पुरानी अपडेट है. US जॉर्ज वॉशिंगटन has been moved to Middle East, and पहली बार ऐसा हुआ है, the region of Pacific is now vacant. Right? So what has US done? It's a US based, it has moved it to Middle East. What does it tell you? USA is not fully moving away from the region. It is still invested. So this is that US George Washington. So in this part I am writing, for example, it is moving George Washington. It has moved that to Middle East. Second, specifically with respect to Israel and US, because of this relation, they are invested in Gulf, and I will say over invested in Gulf. And in this part, even Iran brings in more complexities. Iran's nuclear enrichment brings in more, like issues. Last year also, the B-2 bombers were there. This year, the full-blown escalation happened, right? And USA goes to the extent that USA says, we now want to control the Strait of Hormuz. So excessive interference of USA is there, which again tells you the era of USA is not over. Okay? Abhi aapne suna hoga petrodollars, right? The petrodollar economy. Then another point I can say, USA again has good relations with major Saudi, etc. Turkey is still a NATO ally, even though they are a part of Mecca Pact. But these countries are not abandoning US. These countries are not abandoning US. I need to know both sides of the argument. दोनों चीज बोल सकते हैं. Hormuz वाले में USA is being very vocal and dictating what can move from Hormuz or not. And the main agreement which happened with Iran was ultimately about the control of Hormuz. And US ने बोला था अगर चीजें, if something is not moving out of Hormuz, we will bomb the entire Hormuz. And abhi bhi the recent issue, the recent escalation is again all because of Strait of Hormuz. So USA is showing a lot of interest in the Strait of Hormuz. Of course, the reason is so much of resources move from Strait of Hormuz. Do you agree on this? अब हम ये सोच रहे हैं, ठीक? अब of course, many of you would not know this. You have not followed the current affairs, right? Now, somebody in the class wrote that USA is focusing more on Indo-Pacific and less on Middle East. ठीक है? This was partially true. आज के समय में true नहीं है. I wanted to do this topic today, but in next class I'll do. What has USA done? USA has changed the name of its command. It was known as Indo-Pacific Command. US ने नाम क्या कर दिया है? Right? नाम change कर दिया है. Okay? And now people are saying, is the USA moving away from Indo-Pacific to a Pacific first approach? Now this is a recent development. इसको भी we will argue, because sometime before you had Anthony Blinken. Anthony Blinken said Indo-Pacific is the biggest cornerstone of American foreign policy. You also know he is right now not in power, of course. Change ho gaya. So now this is a new debate we will explore in the next class. Are we moving away? Because see, India ka perspective kya hai? India ke liye Indo-Pacific is the most important. But for US, with the recent renaming and the recent actions of USA, for example, it moved George Washington from Japan to Middle East. And it's a big move. So are we moving to a Pacific first approach? Are we, or is USA thinking Indian Ocean is not that important? इसका एक और reason है आपके लिए. How many of you know this? Remember this? What is Iris Dana? Iranian ship which had come to India for a naval exercise, and 87 people had died because a torpedo of USA attacked the ship went down. And the moment this happened, people started to question, Indian Ocean is now having multiple competition. Indian Ocean में अब US का competition हो रहा है. And people said, West Asia crisis is spilling over to the Indian Ocean. This is also a very particular question that can be asked. Right? The sinking of the ship, renaming of the command, and moving away of the ships. Is USA going to a Pacific first approach? बस दिमाग में रखो ये चीजें अभी. This we will properly discuss in the next class. And not just this. I will club Strait of Hormuz as a separate topic. We will again revise the whole things with the most recent dimensions. When I had the Strait of Hormuz class, I think in the end of June, I was discussing the ceasefire agreement. Now that ceasefire agreement has gone for a toss. So I will be telling you the updates on Strait of Hormuz. And second topic that we will be doing is, are we or is USA going through a Pacific first approach or not? Again, an interesting topic. And when we discuss this, we will again see, is India's Sagar being threatened by USA? India says security and growth for all. India says net security provider. But if in India's backyard, something of this sort happens, and this is not the only event. Recently, you saw Indian sailors and people, they have died. And then Trump also said ki we cannot do anything and this and that. Not a very proper response he was able to give on that. We can talk about that, right? Okay. Now, same जो question था, American shadow in the Gulf, almost similar points. Let's quickly have a look at. Riyadh bought a defense pact, okay, which America never asked to join. This is your era is ending, right? USA is coercing its own partners. It is putting tariffs on its allies, threats to the mediator. Oman was doing mediation. USA is directly attacking Oman also. Okay. And then we also discussed it is Saudi has taken or under the umbrella of Pakistan as a nuclear state. And Saudi was being protected under US umbrella. Even this highlights the era is ending. Can we say? But we can also always have a counter. America remains Gulf's largest military presence. उससे भी ज़्यादा arms supplier. Whenever the region is fine, USA says कुछ तो होना चाहिए. It sends a lot of weapons, arms supplier, right? So that is their market. And pacts do not replace fleet. You have just had a pact, but the troops stationed, the fleets that are stationed, वो तो है ही ना अभी भी, right? That is there. Of course, the new pact is not, it is totally untested. We have not seen how it will work in operation. That is there. There is no joint command, no published thing, right? It is simply an insurance. This is an issue. Okay. Every signatory has kept the channels open with Washington, that is US. Everybody is hedging, sure. But nobody has said we are not going to take any help from the US. As simple as that. Which again tells you the era is slightly changing, but to say American era in USA is over is a very premature statement. How America operates in the region is changing, yes, but American influence still remains in the region. इसको बोलते हैं arguing on both sides of the question. दोनों चीजें हैं. And you will see questions like this coming. तो वहां पे आपको you need to know how to argue, you need to know how to present your case. Able to follow till here? ठीक है? Now I think what I can do now, the next topic I don't think we'll be able to start, so I'll quickly go through. This I think you have asked. कैसे cover करना है? ठीक है? I have both the papers with me, Indian Express and the Hindu. I'll just give you a quick overview of how to go about. So many of you ask. ठीक है? देखो, ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या है? एक तो ऑप्टिमाइज करना है टाइम. टाइम के साथ लर्निंग आउटकम्स दोनों चीजें हैं. ठीक है? I have not taken today's paper Sunday because Sunday को you know not much analysis, nothing of that sort comes. So I've taken the paper of Saturday, that is 22nd August. Fine. ये सब तो वैसे ही छोड़ना है हमें. अब for example, the first page you can just have an overview. What is the good thing that is there, right? Debates and stirs are happening. You ठीक है? Nothing important. Basic. This song is a lot in news. Vande Mataram. You do that for prelims perspective. Nothing very important. Acha, this you should know for mains perspective. Ethanol blending, the sugar price hike, everything around that. Why this is happening? India has to import. Okay. And this is something you should prepare, right? So sugar prices se kya hai? This is also international. Something is happening. And what is happening in the Indian perspective, right? H1N1, science and tech. Directly I will have to jump to the editorial page. यहाँ पे भी सब ads, film section. था भी ऊपर. अब ये this is देखो science and technology एक meeting है, बहुत minor event है. This is not a proper BRICS meet. Within BRICS there is something known as STI. उनकी meeting है ये. Science Technology Innovation Council की. Okay. Again nothing much important. अब आते हैं ये हमारी काम का है page. This is your editorial page, right? पहला saving faces. Use of facial recognition equipment at protest site is worrisome. ये तो सुना है सबने, राइट? अब देखो, एज अ स्टूडेंट ऑफ पीएसआईआर, द मोमेंट आई रीड द हेडिंग, मेरे दिमाग में क्या क्लिक हो रहा है बताओ? राइट टू प्राइवेसी, वेरी गुड। दूसरा, केस पुट्टा स्वामी। तीसरा, सर्वेलेंस स्टेट। चौथा, डिजिटल लेवियाथन। ठीक, अब नहीं भी स्ट्राइक हो रहा है, दिस यू विल सी इन माय क्लासेस आल्सो, फाइन। दिस इज एन इंपॉर्टेंट आर्टिकल, राइट? एंड इट्स अ वेरी शॉर्ट वन, यू नीड टू नो, बिकॉज अल्टीमेटली इन दिस क्या होगा? स्टेट ओवर पुलिसिंग, it was people's right to protest, and if state is using over policing powers, this is a worrisome trend. So that is the point. Read about it, what is the main essence, okay? But main चीज है, सोचो ये यूज कहां करेंगे? See, facial recognition you also do in science and tech, also in internal security, in all these dimensions, and even in basic governance and polity this will be there, right? So you keep this in mind. और मेन लिंक किससे करोगे? राइट टू प्राइवेसी से लिंक करोगे। राइट टू प्राइवेसी ऑफ एन इंडिविजुअल वर्सेस स्टेट राइट टू प्रिवेंट or preserve the order, right? Public order. Now, इसमें भी basically they have talked about, see, they have talked about Digital Data Protection Act. One couple of points are mentioned here. You will go through this. Now, India must enforce noise pollution regulations. You read about environment. ऐसा कुछ है नहीं हमारे यहाँ, right? So which is why what happens? 1 a.m., 2 a.m., right? Somebody can start to blare the horn, noises can be problematic. ठीक है, decibel related regulations are also not there. अब इसमें से I think they've mentioned a case, you can remember that case. Other things you can have an idea. इसमें भी articles mentioned है, article 21, right? और इसमें भी है, right? Article 21 says protected from unlawful noise. ठीक है, ठीक। अब देखो, दिस इज, यू विल से टू फार टू, अब इसमें दिस इज वन आर्टिकल ऑन द हिंदू में है, या पढ़ेंगे अच्छे से। अनइम्पीडेड ट्रेड नीड्स IPMDA एज द आंसर। अनइम्पीडेड मींस अनइंटरप्टेड ट्रेड, तो इसका मतलब है IPMDA इज द आंसर टू दैट, ओके? नाउ दिस इज अ प्रॉपर क्वेश्चन इन GS2 ऑल्सो, इन PSIR ऑल्सो, इसको आप अच्छे से पढ़ेंगे, राइट? Whatever new thing you are able to find out, for example, in this it will take you some time to read, okay? But largely speaking, if there's any very good fact, जैसे I think some fact related to money, geo-economically the reason, Indo-Pacific क्या important चीज है, right? Hormuz, Bab al-Mandeb, Lombok, Malacca straits है यहाँ पे, right? बना कब था? It was launched in 2022, right? Right? एड्रेस करना है, सब कुछ है, एंड लॉन्च्ड अंडर क्वाड। क्या क्या चीजें इसमें? नाउ मेन चीज क्या है? इंडो पैसिफिक में देयर इज अ डेफिसिट ऑफ मैरीटाइम सर्वेलेंस, दिस इज व्हाट इट ट्राइज टू एड्रेस, दिस इज द कोर आर्ग्यूमेंट। इफ यू डू अ कांस्टेंट सर्वेलेंस ऑफ एनी एरिया, आपको पता होगा ना व्हाट आर द नेविगेशन रूट्स, व्हाट आर द थ्रेट्स, so this will help you. So this is what you will read, for example. अब इसमें in this the heading of the article is good enough, आपको पता रहेगा। Any important 4 or 5 lines of facts that you want to add, you add it. अब if somebody is already good in geography, if you already know important choke points, you just write choke points. अब जिसकी नॉलेज नहीं है, if you're reading for the first time, आपको सारे पॉइंट्स लिखने पड़ेंगे। So your note making depends also on your knowledge base, right? If you are fine, okay. Otherwise it may require some efforts. So इसमें I think they have used, अब देखो ये क्या है? Gray zone operation, this is a keyword, you will write gray zone operation कहीं पे, fine. This is linked to IFC IOR, this is by the way in Gurgaon, ASEAN, right? से लिंक कर सकते हो, इंडिया के कॉन्टेक्स्ट से लिंक कर सकते हो। That is the whole idea about Indo-Pacific. The whole article is on Indo-Pacific, ठीक है? Similarly, if you were to go in the previous topic, equity amidst India's educational progress, direct GS2 का टॉपिक है, okay? Even in society you can use it, even in social justice you can use it, okay? And this article is quoting this UDICE 20 report. तो इस रिपोर्ट के सिर्फ वेरी स्पेसिफिक फैक्ट दैट यू कैन रिमेंबर, इट मे हैव 10 फैक्ट्स, क्या 10 याद होंगे? में नहीं होंगे, आप पिक एंड चूज करो 2 से 3 अच्छे फैक्ट, बियॉन्ड दिस आप आंसर में लिख ही नहीं पाओगे। ऑलरेडी यू नो एजुकेशनल सिस्टम में क्या इशू है, एनरोलमेंट तो है पर क्वालिटी नहीं है. वी यूज टर्म्स लाइक इंडिया हैज IITs. What are IITs? उसके लिए we use a phrase that IITs are islands of excellence in an ocean of mediocrity. Right? बहुत लिमिटेड है IITs या IIMs या NITs. दूसरा एजुकेशनल आउटकम्स, यू नो असर रिपोर्ट पढ़ी है हमने, ASER, that students of class 8 not able to solve 2 and 3 की मैथ की प्रॉब्लम्स. इफ यू ऑलरेडी नो दिस, यू फाइंड ऐसी इंटरेस्टिंग चीज जो आपको बहुत अच्छी लगे, तो जब आर्टिकल पढ़ो डोंट डायरेक्टली पैसिवली रीड, अच्छा हाँ ये बोला है. You know what is you know in education? Anything that challenges your view or adds new perspective, only that you have to add. Otherwise क्या होगा, एजुकेशन में 50 पन्ने के नोट्स बन जाएंगे एजुकेशन में. Every 1 month good article will come on education. At max only one question will be asked to you. इस साल आया है एजुकेशन with GS2. Almost every second year either they will ask you education or they will ask you health. I don't think they've asked you health this year, but they have asked you education. Fine. If possible, if you want, somebody can take digital notes, whatever helps. A dry spell along Kaveri river. The moment you see Kaveri, you will have some idea. Kaveri river hai, it already there is a river dispute. Okay, first issue. Second issue will be there is monsoon and there is a El Nino. There will be changing flow of water. There will be issues, right? Water. If अब इसमें ना don't go into too much. This is going to be a very detailed article. Summary पढ़ो समझ के. If you feel, I don't think you have to go into so much of detail. Just the essence, and you are done. Don't read. अब इसमें this is going to be a highly detailed article. Not needed. इतनी detail में पढ़ना. Because already if you have covered interstate water disputes, if you are aware of irrigation, if you are aware of all of that, more than sufficient. इस तरह से हाँ, but you should know what is the issue. अब देखो बिना भी पढ़े, weak monsoon, struggling तमिलनाडु, कर्नाटका, ये पूरा इशू है. दिस इज ऑल्सो इशू ऑफ फेडरलिज्म, राइट, वो याद रखेंगे. और इसमें हाँ वो देख सकते हैं कोई अच्छी चीज, एनी गुड थिंग दैट इज देयर टू सॉल्व दैट, दैट इज फाइन. प्रॉब्लम यू ऑलरेडी नो. पूरे आर्टिकल में शायद मेजर पॉइंट यहां तक प्रॉब्लम ही चल रही होगी. सोल्यूशन देखो कहां पे है. इफ यू सी द सोल्यूशन, योर जॉब इज डन. ओके, नाउ हियर आल्सो एनीथिंग दैट इज ऑफ रेलेवेंस, बट यहां से अब धीमे धीमे रेलेवेंस कम होता जाएगा. Now this will be a topic that will be discussed across 6 months. At the end, you should have basic idea of ethanol, right? What is ethanol? Composition, right? Blending targets, compare with Brazil, right? Calorific value, you should know with petrol. क्यों कर रहे हैं? What are the issues that we are facing? All of that. एक बार cover करा, हो गया अपना आर्टिकल. Okay? Okay, that अब जैसे है CBSE OSM रो, इसको use as an example in governance, that even though there is online evaluation, there is no guarantee it will be done well. Sometimes the portals, allocation of evaluators, it may be an issue. ये तो आपने देखे होंगे इसकी videos, the online evaluation, all the challenges that were there, right? This is very much ongoing topic, almost आपको NGT and floodplains पे दिखता रहेगा. Again, tariff formula, air, not that relevant. कोई एक scheme, mobile phones, basic idea, have a look at. Now this will be very much factual in the news, right? May add a subsidy scheme. जब add करेंगे तब पढ़ लेंगे, ठीक है? So many times you should know when you read the heading, should you skip it? In most cases you can easily skip it. अब ये भी बहुत आएगा वर्ड वाला पेज. And almost a lot of things will get repeated. This thing again happens. हर 5 दिन में ये आर्टिकल आएगा. Iran will say something, US will say something. Iran will say something, US will say something. For some time you just read this and the subtext, more than sufficient. Okay, but you should be aware. जैसे Turkey में what is happening, but don't go into detail of it. Should I know everything around it? Okay, अब देखो, Japan Kuril Islands बहुत 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 पुराना issue है. I need to know at max Kuril Island is a disputed island. सवाल prelims में which countries? That's it. So in that sense your mind should be open. Okay, अब US and South Korea have had drills. Forget it, आगे बढ़ो. Drones killing, you can move ahead. right? This is again an ongoing topic. Balochistan, again ongoing topic, because you already know Myanmar, if you prepared it once well, unless there is a major development, don't bother changing your notes or maybe adding anything unless there is a major development. Sports में तो चलो ठीक है, you can श्रद्धा अनुसार, right? Nothing of this will come, barring in prelims maybe one question, and that also there is no guarantee. You may be a fan of sports, badminton, F1, but chess पे पूछ सकते हैं, you never know, right? Same exercise I think you can do for express. अच्छा, express में you will also see explained page, this and that. अब देखो, अभी देखो, this is, you know these terms, dovish and hawkish, monetary policy, ठीक है? अब this, whenever there is a hike of interest rate, repo rate कुछ भी change होगा, this always is there. Economics का you should be aware, okay? Now this is something in the news. UPI पे क्या बहुत कर रहे हैं? There should be a MDR, merchant discount rate, which means now if you transact 1,000 rupees, the transaction cost will be applied. Who is going to bear it? Right now the companies were bearing it. Now they're thinking of transferring it to the consumer. If that happens, then the issue is, will the people actually follow it or not? अभी क्या हो रहा है? A lot of the companies are making a lot of losses. अब इसमें भी one of the argument is कि भाई इसको free कर दो, more people will come, this and that. So you can read about it. Now this is going to be a more political article, ignore it. Migrants वाले में, if there is anything fine, then you can go through it, otherwise you can ignore it. अब देखो, this is also a topic linked to society also, right? This year there was no question, but Marathi mandate for cabs and autos, if the language is made compulsory, basic essence होना चाहिए, ठीक है? And when you're reading it, again think of कि you are not just preparing for prelims. Prelims भी हो सकता है, mains पे interview भी. If you are well informed, and the other important thing for me is, if you have a reading habit, that's it. Sometimes some students directly jump to the editorial page, spend 30 minutes on it, रख देते हैं paper को. That is also fine. So major prelims के update, anyways you will be doing from some compilation or some course, and both that can also be there. तो मेन चीज हमें देखनी है एडिटोरियल से क्या मिल सकता है. अब ये देखो, सुहास पलिशिकर, आई कोट हिम एक्सटेंसिवली इन माय क्लासेस, ये अच्छा एक आर्टिकल है. अब कोई ऐसा बोलेगा सर आई तो वाज रीडिंग हिंदू, अब ये भी करना है और ये भी करना है, अभी के लिए सिर्फ एक करो. कोई ऐसा कोई अच्छा आर्टिकल होगा, एंड ऑफ कोर्स अभी इट डिपेंड्स ऑन द आर्ग्यूमेंट. Anyways, we'll be covering it in the class, but for your reading, only stick to one paper, whatever you like. Because there is no dearth of people who are writing. Every newspaper have their own set of scholars. And there are so many newspapers, so many magazines. ऐसे तो कभी खत्म नहीं होगा, ठीक है? अब this is a topic that will be having a lot of political debates. So this will go on and on and on. Okay? छोड़ सकते हो. इसकी भी ना, this pay you will get perhaps only a question from an interview perspective. Okay, for example, urban Naxals has been asked, right? Ab Dimagi Naxal pe bhi you will see the opposition trying to corner present their side of view. That is all that is going to be there. So you should be smart about what can be asked. So इसमें और कोई बहुत ज़्यादा issues है नहीं, right? Now what Express has done, उन्होंने बहुत अलग से pages बनाए हैं. तब इसमें भी almost same thing they've asked. So don't have to go in all these details कि भैया मुझे सब पता होनी चाहिए, जितनी लोकेशन है ये तो करोगे तो this is totally depends on you. How much effort are you willing to put in? But this is not needed. At max have an overview. Main चीज है पढ़ना है हमें editorial, and you should have a timer maximum 40 minutes, 45 minutes, if possible 30 minutes. And there will be days जिस दिन कोई भी article काम का नहीं होगा, उस दिन आप आगे बढ़ जाओ, ठीक है? So what you are looking forward to is roughly 8 to 10 editorials in a week, okay, and that is roughly amounting to 2 hours of reading. उसमें से भी जो बेस्ट आर्टिकल्स होंगे, आई ट्राई टू पोस्ट इट 2 or 3 गुड आर्टिकल्स ऑफ दैट वीक, वो पढ़ सकते हो. और मेन चीज क्या है ना, बैकलॉग, व्हेनेवर यू वांट यू कैन कंप्लीट योर बैकलॉग. एंड देन डोंट थिंक सर शुड आई स्टार्ट फ्रॉम 1 जनवरी, कोई पॉइंट नहीं, स्टार्ट राइट नाउ, राइट? ऐसे तो फिर जितने पाप कितने पाप धोगे, राइट? तो दिस इज गुड इनफ, ठीक है? विद दिस we also come to an end for today's class. Because this was lecture 1 for 2027 aspirants, the pace, and by the way, pace will be almost like this. You will be able to comprehend every point. Now your takeaway should be, टेक अवे क्या होगा हमारा, ये राइटअप बहुत एनरिच राइटअप है, बहुत डायमेंशन है, बहुत चीजें एक जगह पे एक साथ, एंड वी हैव ऑर्गेनिकली लर्नड इट थ्रू इन द क्लास. देयर इज अ हाई चांस यू विल रिमेंबर इट, but there is also a high chance you will forget it if you don't revise it, right? Which means what? Always make it a point whenever your class ends within the 24 hours, and you will see there's a matrix, kuch ek term bolte hain, I'm forgetting the name. Your highest retention is up to 24 hours. Suppose that you lose or forget most of the 80%. So today, before sleeping or tomorrow in the morning, just try to quickly go through all these points. Second cheese, whatever terms I use, anything I references I give, it should be your duty, responsibility, just like fundamental duties, to go and write it. Sincerity always helps. ठीक है, वो करेंगे. Now we are done with at least one is the orientation class. In that we have done the decoding of paper 1A. Second is the current affairs class. Current affairs class इसी तरह से and with more topics will be continuously done till December. Fine. Now we will be now meeting for the static topic, that is we will be meeting for political theory. ठीक है, political theory का format क्या होगा, you will be getting a handout, right? We will be making notes on it, but you will also have live at least one question writing also. ठीक है, so many of you who have joined very recently, or if somebody had missed any of the classes from the previous 300 plus batches, you can come offline also, you can watch it live, whatever you want. In case somebody is already completed from the previous batches, आप अपना schedule follow करिए. ठीक है, that is the whole idea. So most probably we'll be meeting on Tuesday. I'll be updating you on that. आपको ग्रुप में अपना अपडेट मिल जाएगा. ठीक है, अभी के लिए इसको देखना है. जो क्वेश्चन मैंने अब आपको दिया था about the US guarantee, I have only asked you to write the introduction. What you will do is you will write the answer for it. In the bracket लिखो 10 marks. करंट अफेयर्स की क्लास में हमेशा हम एक क्वेश्चन मिनिमम लिखेंगे, राइट? Whosoever writes a good question, I will also post that question in the group. By this is the good question. Somebody has done a good attempt. Okay? And if you write it, you can also share your current affairs answers. एक एक क्वेश्चन लिखेंगे, भेज सकते हो. ठीक है, ठीक है. Let me just check. I think there are no doubts online, or if there are, I'll try to address. One second. Support में Mecca. No, I think your points were fine. I had already mentioned. Points सही हैं आपके. ठीक है. Prashant, I'll be sharing that, okay, soon, because abhi right now, the last 5 days will also be occupied with the students who are writing mains, so which is why we right now not directly sharing it. I will see wherever I find time. Post that there's a proper planner, classes and all of that will be shared, so don't worry. So before time, you'll be getting the update on when the class is going to happen. Okay? Any doubts for the people offline? कोई doubt है अभी? ठीक है, तो in case anybody wants to discuss anything, you can stay back. Other people, we will be discussing. ठीक है? Fine then, we'll end the class here. All right.